Good afternoon. I want to thank everyone for joining us today. Today, we are going to have a number of bills heard in the Appropriations Committee. I think, as a matter of fact, they're bills that cover areas like education, collective bargaining, public institutions of higher education. So there are just a number of bills that you will be interested in, and we appreciate you being with us today. The most important thing that we have to do today is we're going to start our afternoon with voting on one bill. Before I get into the content of that bill, I want to do one thing with the committee, which we first have to take a voice vote to waive the House rule that every bill or resolution of this committee has to be a final vote on, must be reported to the floor within 3 legislative days after final action by the committee. We are waiving this rule for the 2021 session. The reasons for that are obvious because we are now virtual, and the bills that we vote on this week, later on this week, could be held longer than 5 days before we are actually on the floor together to vote for them. So this motion is needed. So I'd like to make a motion to waive the 3-day rule. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Is there anyone opposed? Thank you. Thank you very much. Now we're going to move to a voting session. The bill we have before us, House Bill 1, is the Speaker's bill we heard last week, historically Black colleges and university funding. The bill has no amendments, but there are a few changes from the bill we heard last year. First, the funding is mandated by the bill does not begin until FY23. The bill also raises the floor for each HBCU to 9 million to accommodate the short-term potential for enrollment dips that this is an emergency bill, and it also makes technical changes to the dates. Are there any questions about the bill or the changes? Okay, hearing none, I will move favorable. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, and because of the importance of this bill, because it is a priority bill of the speakers and of the House, I am going to, on this bill, make sure that we do a roll call. So Cherie, would you call the roll?
We will begin with the chair. Madam Chair, yay or nay?
Yay.
Vice Chair Chang? We will move on to Delegate Acevero.
Yay.
Delegate Barnes.
Yes.
Delegate Beitzel.
Yes.
Delegate Bridges.
Yes.
Delegate Forbes.
Yay.
Delegate Grice.
No.
Delegate Haynes.
Yay.
Delegate Henson.
Yes.
Delegate Kittleman.
No.
Delegate Corman.
Yes.
Delegate Krim.
Yes.
Delegate Mangione.
No.
Delegate McKay.
Yay.
Delegate Metzger.
Yes.
Delegate Proctor.
Yes.
Delegate Resnick.
Yes.
Delegate Solomon.
Yay.
And to clarify, Delegate McKay, that was a yay.
That is correct, 100% yay.
Thank you very much. And do we have Vice Chair Chang?
I don't think we do. Thank you very much.
Did you call Valentino Smith?
I didn't get
Madam
called.
Chair,
Oh, I'm so sorry. Delegate Valentino Smith.
An emphatic yay.
Delegate Young,
Yes.
Delegate Novotny,
No.
Delegate Lewis.
Oh,
I do not believe we have Delegate Lewis.
Okay.
And once again, trying Vice Chair Chang.
Nope. So those two
All right,
marked absent. All right.
all right.
Thank you very much, committee, and thank you for your cooperation on getting the rule changed. We're now going to move to our bill hearings for this afternoon. And the first bill of the day is House Bill 487. I might mention that the bill following this will be House Bill 65 and then House Bill 173 if you are want to know the order so that you can follow along there at home. But House Bill 487, Delegate Solomon, Education, School Construction, Pedestrian Safety Plan. And this is a sponsor-only bill. Delegate Solomon, the floor
Thank
is
you, Madam Chair. Thank you, colleagues. So this, as the chair just said, is a bill bringing back from last year. The School Pedestrian Safety Act passed this committee, I believe, on a vote of 17-2 and passed the full chamber by a vote of 120-12. It is in its same form as it passed the chamber last session. As I think many of you will remember, this is really just about inserting school pedestrian safety plans into the school construction process. Would require a school district that is either building an entirely new school or expanding the capacity of an existing school by 100 students or more to essentially incorporate pedestrian safety into that process. And that includes analyzing the sidewalk capacity, looking at safe routes to school, making sure that there are safe passages for biking as well, and working collaboratively both with the local departments of transportation and also the State Highway Administration, making sure that there's a public component. The public school community is involved in the plan. I know last year we worked out a compromise with some of my colleagues who represent more rural jurisdictions to make sure that we were accommodating those areas. So the change that we made last session was we made sure that this only applied to high density areas within rural jurisdictions. So like the city of Hagerstown, for example, the rest of the county would not. Again, the reason we brought this forward is there were over 3,000 pedestrian injuries in Maryland, and almost were children who were below the age of 19, and nearly half of those were hurt or killed while walking or getting to and from school. One of the most jarring statistics that I saw recently was just the incredible increase in the number of citations given with COVID and people on the roads, and almost 400 of those citations were for people driving 90 miles an hour or more. And so I think the heightened increase for pedestrian safety when we reopen and get back to some level of normalcy will only increase the need for this bill. So again, passed our committee 17-2, the chamber 120-12, and would ask for a quick favorable report. Thank you. And I will just lastly say there's about 10 or 12 written testimonies that were submitted on your floor system as well. Thank you.
Good. Are there any questions of the sponsor? Any questions? Okay, thank you very much. You were, as you promised, very succinct. I thank you.
Thank you.
That completes the bill hearing on House Bill 487. We're now going to move to House Bill 65. Delegate Bandari, welcome to the Appropriations Committee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm here to present House Bill 65, State Board of Environmental Health Specialist Fees General Fund. In fiscal year 2013, the legislature transferred the Board of Environmental Health Specialist from the Department of the Environment to the Department of Health. And as a part of the switch, their funding mechanism was switched from the general fund to the specialist fund. Once this change was completed, the board completed a long-term fiscal projection, which showed that if revenues did not increase, the board would run a deficit. Over the past few years, the collecting of licensing fees has proven to be insufficient. House Bill 65 eliminates the State Board of Environmental Health Specialist fund and requires that the state board be funded through the general fund. By changing the funding in this manner from a special fund to the general fund would help provide sufficient funding to the board without having to pass those costs onto licenses who have little to or no discussion on setting their salaries to licensing fees. In the last session, this bill was passed in the Senate, but no action was taken on this bill as we adjourned early due to the COVID. Jim Merrill, the board's executive director, Bert Nixon, a former board president, Matt Kumers, a board member, are here to testify in support of the bill. There is no opposition to this bill. I thank you for your time, and I urge a favorable report for House Bill 65. Thank you.
Are there any questions of the sponsor? Any questions of the sponsor?
Just hold on a minute, Maggie.
Is that,
I have a question.
okay, go ahead.
Is this the environmental health specialist that is the same as the ones that work in the counties and that they collect fees for doing perk tests and that sort of thing, or is this something different?
Jim Merrill would answer that question. Jim, are you there?
Okay.
He's an
yeah.
expert.
So one of the witnesses will answer that question.
Okay,
Yes.
Okay.
Hello.
And,
Yeah.
and
I can wait to hold it till the witness then comes if you want me.
very good. Thank you, delegate. And let's try to remember to please raise your hand so I can,
Okay.
if you do, you pop up on the screen and it's easy for me to call you. But with this, we will move to the first witness for today, and that's Matt Kumers, who is here. Matt?
Hello, Madam Chair and distinguished committee members. My name is Matt Cummers. I'm here on behalf of the Board of Environmental Health Specialists today, and I appreciate you hearing my oral testimony. One thing I want to start off with is discussing exactly what but the question was, which was from what exactly do we do? What are environmental health specialists and what do they do and the importance of them? So I'll start just briefly. We are better known as health inspectors. We are the ones who are inspecting your grocery stores where you buy your food. We're inspecting the food service facilities where we eat out. We're doing perk tests. We're testing your water and certifying potability. We're inspecting public swimming pools and spas. We're inspecting septic haulers and refuse haulers. COVID compliance has become a huge part of our role as well this year. And so we're there enforcing the governor's orders, ensuring that masks are being worn, face coverings, and that social distancing and frequent cleaning of high contact surfaces, et cetera. All of our roles are very important to public health and protecting people from infectious disease. So first want to stress how important environmental health specialists are, in all of those roles that we do, but also the value of the board. There's quite a bit of value in the board and it being there. First, establishes a code of ethics and really holds the standards of professionalism for those practicing environmental health specialists and licensees, to just really perform at a much higher level. The high standards that we hold for education, they must have at least a bachelor's degree to become licensed in the state of Maryland, and also have to go through a rigorous, on-the-job training program. They also have to pass a licensure examination so that, they are licensed nationally, basically through the National Environmental Health Association. So the board helps maintain a high degree of integrity in the workforce. Also, the folks who do this job, I know, coming up through, I've been an environmental health specialist for 15 years and now an environmental health director and sit on the board. But the folks that are coming in and out there every day in the restaurants are making modest salaries, very modest salaries. And the $200 fee for licensure every 2 years is substantial. To raise that fee for these folks, keep in mind when they're making somewhere in the 40s, it's pretty low to mid 40s. And When you start off, they're in the mid 30s. It's, but these are very intelligent, highly trained, and professional people. They don't make a lot. So the impact that this bill would be great, to those people who really, dedicate themselves to protecting public health every day.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. Next person up is Bert Nixon.
Good afternoon, everybody. Madam Chair, members of the committee. I am Bert Nixon, Director of Environmental Health for Howard County, and I did serve for 9 years on the Board of Environmental Health Specialists, including 3 years as president. Matt actually is my replacement. I'm here on both behalf of the Conference of Environmental Health Directors as well as the board to testify in strong support for House Bill 65. As noted in our written testimony and to some degree piggybacking on some of Matt's comments, environmental health specialists play a key role statewide in implementing and overseeing a variety of health and environmental regulations established by Maryland Department of the Health, Maryland Department of the Environment, as well as local jurisdictions. Over the past year, as Matt mentioned, we have been on the front lines dealing with various aspects of executive orders and have been responding to thousands of safety and business-related complaints due to the pandemic, plus now providing administrative support to a lot of the vaccination clinics. The board plays a critical role in ensuring a standardized workforce, reviewing and approving new trainings and maintaining the licensure requirements. As you may know, until 2011 sunset review, the board had previously been general funded. Despite a DLS recommendation, the board was switched to a special funding where it remains today. With a limited workforce statewide, modest salaries, and recurring and increasing operational costs, the board is simply not physically sustainable as currently funded. We believe that the best way for the board to maintain its physical solvency, thereby ensuring the mission of a licensed environmental health specialist, is to return the funding back to a general fund and payment funding structure. I want to thank our sponsor, and I ask the committee for a favorable review of House Bill 65. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, do we have James Merrow here? James? All right, how about Drew Jabin? Jabin.
Hi, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Drew Jabin here on behalf of the Maryland Association of Counties, here in support of House Bill 65. I will be brief. As you have our written testimony, I second everything that has been said before me. The board licenses environmental health specialists who work on the local level to ensure standards in air quality, food safety, on-site wastewater, and more. The board ensures that the state has qualified environmental health professionals. It has a small fiscal note, and I would like to note, as has been said, that it passed the Senate unanimously last year. With that, Mako urges a favorable report.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Are there any questions of any of the members of the public who've been here to testify today? Any questions? Please raise your hand. Wendell Delegate Beitzel. Thank you.
Yes, Madam Chair. Thank you. I just wanted to ask the question. This environmental health specialist now is what used to be called the sanitarians. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yeah, and just for the record, I used to be one of those.
Oh,
Congratulations.
For 10 years in Garrett County and started the first air quality control program there. So basically what you're asking for in this bill is for the general fund to fund your board of the environmental health specialist. And how is that being funded now?
It's a special funding. So we're self-supporting to the extent that we're self-supporting. But we've been experiencing deficits, I think, for the last several years, ever since we went into the special funding category.
in the special funding category, then the money you receive in that is paid by the environmental health specialist
Correct,
in order to maintain the registration.
correct.
And what is the fee that they're paying now?
$200 every 2 years.
Okay. So the choice is to raise their fees to stay registered, or that's to approve this bill so it can be funded from the general fund. And if it is funded from the general fund, what are you going to do with the fees that they're paying now to be registered environmental health specialist?
My understanding, and if Jim is on, he could probably speak better to this, but my understanding is that all of the funds that we collect, so for our licenses, for exam fees, renewals, those types of things would all be supplied to the general fund, and then the general fund would make up the balance.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're very welcome. Thank you. Any other questions? Please raise your hand. Okay. We thank you very much for being here today. And thank you, Delegate Mandari, for bringing the bill to us. All right.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And
Thank you, everybody.
members. Thank you.
Stay safe, stay healthy.
Thank you.
That completes the bill hearing on House Bill 65. We are now going to move to House Bill 173. And Delegate Feldmark is here with us today to present that bill. It's Community Colleges State Funding Revisions. Delegate.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Thank you, committee members. This is a bill that I brought before you last year. It may look familiar. And I want to start off by thanking you for the work you do for our community colleges. Community colleges are continually underfunded, and I know that this committee works hard every year to restore as much of that funding as possible. And as a delegate who has the privilege of representing 2 different counties, I have 2 community colleges, and I know both of them are deeply appreciative of the work you've done to restore funding in years past. So this is a CADE formula correction. It's a clarification to make sure that the spirit of the CADE formula is actually carried out in how the funding requirements are calculated. So as you know, the CADE formula sets a percentage of the funding received by selected public institutions, and that sets the funding for our community colleges. The problem has been recently that when that percentage is calculated, we're not looking at all of the funding going to those public 4-year institutions. It's sort of a budgeting loophole that some of the funding gets excluded because it's budgeted centrally in DBM rather than in the institutions themselves. And if you have the fiscal and policy note, I'll draw your attention to the end of the state and local fiscal effect. There's a sentence, DLS includes projected COLA increases in the current law calculations for the BCCC and CADE funding formulas in future years. There's a reason they include those COLAs. It makes sense. It's part of the funding we're giving to public 4-year institutions. It should be part of the base of the calculation for the funding that goes to community colleges. Now, I believe last year there was sort of some agreement in concept, but there was the challenge of the fiscal note. This year, the administration is not utilizing this loophole in the proposed budget, which means it doesn't have the same fiscal note. And so I think this is the perfect time to close this loophole and make sure that we calculate the funding owed to our community colleges accurately and properly. So just want to keep it brief, but happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
We thank you, and you're correct. The governor's bill is a budget bill, treats community colleges just differently this year. I would just say as a footnote to early discussions among our appropriations education leaders that we believe that community colleges will have a significant role in helping move our citizens out of this pandemic when it comes to employment and reemployment. So we're very aware of their role and very aware of how important it is to get this right with them. So I thank you for bringing the bill forward. We'll be in discussion with you as we move along, but thank you again. Are there any other questions of the sponsor? Very good. We're going to move to two folks who are here to testify in favor of the bill. Remember, you have a 2-minute rule, and I may stop you if you wander on past that too long. We like to keep things moving. Brad Phillips. Is Brad Phillips here?
Yes, good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Again, my name is Brad Phillips, and I'm the Deputy Executive Director for the Maryland Association of Community Colleges. And first, thank you, Delegate Feldmark, for reintroducing this legislation. And Madam Chair, thank you for everything that you just said. It means a lot, and I think everybody agrees with you that we're going to be the road to the recovery. The Delegate Feldmark has already expressed how this would close one of the doors that we end up getting reduced. And I'll just cut to the end for brevity and tell you that the main point here is that from a policy perspective, the way the state finances higher education is really one of the most effective tools you have in generating long-term and lasting social and economic mobility. This bill will help close some of that equity gap that we tend to receive either by reducing the percentage tie or not including funding in the base calculation. And we think it will raise awareness, we hope, on how just dependent we really are on the state for funding. We're such a strategic asset for the state, and our presidents think as we move out of the pandemic, as you've already said, into the economic recovery, we hope that we are realized for our full potential and support our work through maximum amount of funding that could possibly go forward to help students get out of this economic situation. And with that, thank you very much, and we just encourage a favorable report.
Thank you. We also have Drew. Are you still here, Drew? Yes, there you are.
I am. So again, Drew Jabin here on behalf of the Maryland Association of Counties in support of House Bill 173. This is sensible legislation that would clarify the calculation of appropriations provided to Maryland's community colleges. With unemployment rates at an all-time high due to the pandemic, community colleges have proven to be a super important driver for our state's economic recovery by providing training for displaced workers to retool their skills and re-enter the workforce in a different capacity. Similarly, because the pandemic has forced many students to return home from their four-year institutions, community colleges have stepped up and become even more vital by providing the necessary educational opportunities and resources close to home so that students can stay on track for graduation and enter the workforce. When state funding for community colleges lag, additional pressure then builds on already tight county budgets and on student tuition. This is a very important, good bill that strengthens the funding for Maryland's community colleges, and MACO urges a favorable report.
Thank you. Are there any questions today of the guests who have come to testify, the public? Any questions on this? All right. All right, we got our marching orders, Delegate. Okay.
Thank you very much.
We'll do good work for you and for our community colleges. Thank you very much. That concludes the bill hearing on House Bill 173. We are going to move now to House Bill 374. Delegate Smith.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and also congratulations again to new Vice Chair Chang, and also greetings to the distinguished members of the Appropriations Committee. I am, again, for the record, Delegate Stephanie Smith, and I come before you requesting your support for House Bill 374 that is concerning collective bargaining being established for the faculty workers at the Baltimore City Community College. And I just want to note that there are non-faculty employees at BCCC that currently do have collective bargaining rights. This bill would essentially just authorize one additional collective bargaining unit for faculty be established. I'm glad that I came after Delegate Feldmark, because I think we've already begun the conversation about the importance of community colleges, because we've talked a lot about the challenges for K through 12 learning in COVID-19, but as we know, BCCC faculty are often within the Maryland community college space, supporting students that have some unique challenges, even within the Maryland community college space. And COVID-19 has exacerbated some of those challenges for the students that they've long supported. And it's going to require some out-of-the-box thinking and I think some new levels of coordination for us to make sure that BCCC and the students they serve are operating at the most optimal level possible. So that's one of the reasons why I wanted to, through this legislation, extend an opportunity for the faculty to explore if this is the direction they want to go in. This bill does not create the union, it merely provides a legal mechanism for BCCC faculty to discuss if that's something they think will enhance the ability to be effective as instructors. I do want to note that BCCC has been very fortunate to gain some new leadership as of late through Dr. McCurdy, and I'm sure you'll be hearing from her later. And I know that it's always, when your plate is full, it can be challenging to consider additional items on that plate. But I fully believe that actually giving an opportunity for faculty to explore collective bargaining is not necessarily an impediment to the goals of faculty and Dr. McCurdy to continue to strengthen BCCC. I believe it can potentially provide some structure to communications and some predictability around how to navigate some very challenging times in the facilitation of higher education. So I want to ensure that we have adequate time to hear from others who have signed up to testify, but I do request your careful consideration and ultimately your support for House Bill 374. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, and good to see you.
Nice to see you.
You are my chair as well in the city delegation, so I appreciate you being here.
Of course.
And thank you for this bill. I might note before we begin, and this is not to dampen any discussion about this bill, but I might note that I don't believe any other community college in the state has collective bargaining rights, or I don't. So if this bill were to pass, it would mean that BCCC has, collective bargaining rights that other colleges don't have. But this committee has a history of this issue, and I'm glad that you brought it to us, before us again this year for discussion, not only for BCCC, but generally. Okay, so thank you. We do have people signed up today to testify in favor of the bill, and we do have some unfavorables. So at first, I want to call up Ray Baker from AFT Maryland. And Ray, just remember that you have 2 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate that. And as a communications director for AFT Maryland, I am hypersensitive to timing. If you feel the need to interrupt me, feel free, and I understand and I respect that.
Thank you.
Good afternoon again to you and to the members of the Appropriations Committee. As I alluded, I serve as communications director for AFT Maryland, the state federation, representing some nearly 20,000 education and state, county, and municipal employees that we enthusiastically call for a favorable report for HB 374. The bill that we argue corrects a mistake made years ago and restores collective bargaining rights to the faculty at Baltimore City Community College. Now, a brief jaunt down history's lane tells us that between 1970 and 1990, the faculty at the city's community college enjoyed collective bargaining rights. And in 1990, when the school was renamed and new administration was installed, the faculty union was unfairly decertified, not because the faculty no longer wanted it, but importantly because the administration would not want a faculty union. Now, there's obvious injustice here in unilaterally stripping educators of their collective bargaining rights. And when we frame it as a workers' issue, we can understand that. We have long recognized in Maryland that public employees have a basic right to engage in collective bargaining if they so choose. But also those employees, not management, should be the ones to decide if they want to engage in that bargaining. Now, since that right, again, was stripped from our faculty, the school has suffered. All full-time faculty have been placed on renewable 3-year contracts. No other public higher education institution in the state has this for their full-time faculty. And the school has lost good standing and, importantly, good educators because of this. I would draw the chair and the committee's attention to Montgomery County College that does indeed have the collective bargaining rights that we are alluding to. Before I go, I also want to offer that I individually am an adjunct professor at Towson University, and I know so many of your colleagues are, and the important and hallmark quality of due process rights are so vital to workers' rights that we continue to urge that the BCCC, the faculty there, that you all report favorably on this bill, and that those folks are endowed with the right to collective bargaining and all of the privileges of due process that comes along with it, that are consistent with the way that we fairly treat workers here in the state of Maryland. I ask for a favorable report, and I thank you for this time.
And you know something? You came in right at 2 minutes. You were right on time. I can't believe it.
Madam Chair, some of us have experience in this, and we do not want to prolong the process.
So thank you so much for that. I do want to say that you actually have caused me to have to revise what I said. We here in Annapolis have not voted. We passed a bill one year that actually would have given all community colleges faculty the right to bargain collectively. That did not pass in the Senate, as you may remember. It was a few years back, but some community colleges on their own have chosen to allow faculty to organize. So I think I should clarify what I said earlier. I apologize. I didn't mean to say that no community colleges has collective bargaining. Some, in fact, do. You're absolutely correct that they decided on their own. So my apologies. Thank you very much. We have here, is it Zach Kondo is with us also to testify in favor of the bill? Not hearing him, I'll move on. We have now Dr. Deborah McCurdy. Welcome to the Appropriations Committee.
Actually, I am here. Can you hear me?
Oh, I'm sorry. Excuse me, Doctor. He just didn't get unmuted fast enough. This is new technology, of course. Go ahead. The floor is yours, sir.
Okay, thank you very much, Madam Chairperson. Yeah, I'm a instructor at BCCC. Have been there for 15 years. Before that, I was at Bowie State University, so I've been a faculty member for over 30 years. And I come before you today to enthusiastically support HB 374. I think that not just BCCC, but all community college, should have the right, the faculty and actually the staff too, should have the right for collective bargaining. And I just think that, certainly I would encourage each of you to support this proposal as well.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Correct.
That's going to be the, what is it? It's going to be the most said sentence of the year is going to be, you're on mute. Take yourself off mute. But thank you for your testimony. Now, Dr. McCurdy, it's a pleasure to have you here. I know you will be before us many times around your budget, but always welcome to the Appropriations Committee, and you may begin your testimony.
And thank you. Good afternoon, Chairwoman McIntosh, Vice Chair Chang, members of the committee. For the record, I am Deborah McCurdy, President of Baltimore City Community College, and great opportunity to testify today in opposition of House Bill 0374. And many of you know I joined the college I am just passing a year and a half, and actually to date, I've probably spent more time there on remote than I have face to face. So it'll be a great opportunity to get back. At the onset, let me thank Delegate Smith. I've had conversations with her previously for her openness, honest dialogue about BCCC, the vision, and really the promotion to move the college forward as well. We're moving the college forward, doing great things, certainly with our new leadership. And so I have made it a priority to engage since I've arrived with staff and faculty, look at their experiences to really assess what this institution needs, and being involved with a matter of forums and meetings with departments and offices. That includes the faculty Senate, made up of the full-time instructional faculty who teach at the college. They have teaching loads, advising, student advising as well, office hours, committee assignments, and I am certainly appreciative of their support, eagerness to work together. We've had great conversations to how we begin to rebuild this institution. I meet monthly with the president of the Faculty Senate, and really in more recent times, more often than that. So good communications there on a lot of topics, and primarily in terms of how do we begin to move the institution forward in a shared model, a participatory one with transparency and inclusiveness. I've shared some models and some ideas that I have coming here as well. You have that in the written testimony, where I talk a little bit more about shared governance, which is a strong model, and I think it would work effectively at BCCC. Two areas of great concern in opposition to the model certainly are the costs and the capacity of the institution. At this time, I have a colleague, Shauna Williams, who's the interim VP for Finance, who will hopefully be allowed to speak on testimony in just a few minutes. We're aware that we are held harmless on the state funding formula, and as a result, the college really does not receive any state aid increases. So anything that happens, we usually are going to the funding table and trying to figure out how to keep things moving with the dollars that we have. Collective bargaining at BCCC would have an impact on programs and could lead to a reduction overall, which would significantly impact our student learning. Any costs associated with collective bargaining would really, at this time, unless the state is funding more, would be borne by our students. Our students are already heavily burdened, and so to even look at anything of this magnitude that could create a cost, it could likely pass it on to tuition, which would certainly have a negative impact in that regard. The capacity side, because the VP for Finance can certainly talk more about the costs as I can, but I want to focus in on the capacity and the administrative costs of this bill. Were implemented, the cost for hiring new personnel, managing contracts, office space, the list goes on as we think about unionization and what that new infrastructure would be. Most importantly, on our capacity today, COVID-19 has hit us like many of our colleague institutions as well, and which means we've had to take our full operation, move that into a remote cycle, and begin to try to produce at that level. Right now, we have probably another 6 months before we can even think about full-time faith. When we think about capacity, I really want to talk or present technology and what has happened there as well. We're also preparing for a full middle stage reaccreditation. So when we think about the impact of COVID-19 and everything that colleges had to transition, we have never been through for
Yeah, your 2 minutes is up. So
my 2 minutes is up. All right, then Chairman, that will summarize, but if I can just say that in summary, it is about capacity for new technology, middle states, and the tremendous devastation of COVID-19 as well on our operations and our capacity to continue at that level to bring in a union infrastructure would be huge.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to move to Chanda Williams, and then we'll take questions, okay? If you don't mind, committee members, I'm going to wait and hold the questions till the end, if that's all right. Thank you. Okay, go ahead.
Good afternoon.
You have 2 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon. Thank you, Madam President. Good afternoon also, Delegate Smith. Thank you both for your support. I just want to reinforce some of what Madam President is saying from a financial perspective. Although Baltimore City Community College is held harmless, we still have managed to be subjected to a $3.2 million cut between FY 20 and 21. There was an additional $3.8 million cut for fiscal year 22. We also had reduced funding in general fund appropriation as well, related to our reduction in ESOL students. Any type of cost associated with unionizing would directly impact our students. And keeping our students first, it would impact our tuition and fee structure right now. So we'd have to increase tuition and fees to offset some of the costs associated with the unionization of the faculty staff. And where we are right now, our objectives and our goals that we submitted in the state's MFR plan, it says that we are striving to maintain the lowest tuition in the state. That compromises that if we have to take on the increased cost related to unionizing staff. And additionally, the operational challenges that we have, Dr. McCurdy is absolutely right. We have, the staff is undergoing right now ERP implementation, which is a Herculean effort, operationally and financially, in addition to our strategic plan, and then also the 2017 legislative task that were the colleges mandated to respond to as far as realigning our operational structures. So as far as the increased incremental costs associated with the unionization of faculty and staff, in addition to our operational impact, we respectfully would like to oppose House Bill 374. Thank you, Madam Chair.
And you're really good at 2 minutes too. You're very good. Now we have
Right on the nose.
We have a couple of questions. Delegate Lewis.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and to all the speakers. Delegate Smith, thanks for bringing this bill.
No. Where'd he go?
He's on mute.
You're on mute. There you go. Now you're off. You're okay now.
There we go. How many Zooms does it take for us to figure this out, right?
That's okay.
The fiscal note says that a 1 to 3% raise or so would cost the community college about $100,000 a year. But I guess a contract doesn't actually guarantee a raise. It really depends on the budget. I just want to know what is your take on that?
Thank you, Delegate Lewis. So yes, you're correct. If the faculty want to negotiate a contract, pay could be on the table, but there's actually nothing that just guarantees a raise because it's always going to be subject to the actual budget. So that's something, to just note that the fiscal note theorizes potential increase, but there's nothing that would guarantee that happening. But I also want to add that the considerations that would be potentially negotiated in a contract are not limited to compensation alone. There are other non-economic factors that go into a potential negotiation. So I wanted to lift that up, as well as that there's a broader context in which collective bargaining exists, and it's not always just about compensation dollars.
Okay. All right. Delegate Corman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think this is for the administration. I mean, 3 counties, including mine, as well as Prince George's, the previous questioner's county, and Baltimore County, have collective bargaining at their community colleges. And you made it seem like that maybe those community colleges aren't taking good care of their students because they have collective bargaining. So I just wanted to give you a chance to flesh out a little bit whether you think taking care of students and collective bargaining are actually incompatible, because that's sort of what I heard in your testimony. I just wanted to give you a chance to clarify that.
No, I don't think at all that was the intent. The intent now is for BCCC in terms of the cost at this time that likely would be elevated, as well as the capacity. And what we're going through now with our realignment tasks, with our new ERP that's just been approved, a $7 million venture, that will mean that every function at the institution has to be changed over. We're going through middle states, and on top of everything else, COVID. So we have massive restructuring at the institution, just setting aside realignment and COVID. We will be going, as I said, to a new technology, 20 years behind the date for technology at this institution. And we will be transforming the entire infrastructure of the institution with new technology for HR, finance, student information systems. The entire institution will be transformed within the next 12 to 14 months.
Okay, so should we delay the effective date of this bill to allow more space for you to get through those, accreditation, IT, and COVID-related issues?
That certainly may be some consideration to delay. Quite honestly, for some time. Middle States is 2023. We have about a 15-month period to transition for our new ERP, which is our new technology infrastructure. COVID will be, byproducts will be forever in Middle States as well. When you throw all of that in together to try to manage operationally is massive. And then just for fun, throw in the 12 realignment tasks that this legislature already mandated that this institution take on. And so that is massive, that is consuming. So if you want to talk about an educational tsunami, that's what we have right now.
Yeah, I was on then Chair Jones's subcommittee when that came through. She worked very hard actually to try to support BCCC with those quote unquote mandated recommendations. So thanks for being here. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yeah, and I might add, Dr. McCurdy, you're doing a great job of working through those 12.
Thank you.
We do want to commend you. At some point, maybe during the budget process, we can touch base with you about where you are on those. And I know that I have a bill in, as a matter of fact, cross-filed with Senator Antonio Hayes to try to deal with the procurement piece of one of the recommendations that came out of that report some years ago. So thank you so much for being here. Are there any other, Delegate Krim, I'm sorry, I almost missed your hand.
That's okay, Madam Chair. Thank you. Thank you so much. So I just want to go back to some points that Delegate Lewis and Delegate Smith were talking about in regard to collective bargaining, and address this to you, Dr. McCurdy, about the fact that collective bargaining goes beyond financial issues. And your testimony was mostly focused on financial issues. So if you took the financial issues off the table, would you be interested in doing collective bargaining at your institution if financial issues were not a part of those discussions?
Oops.
You're muted. You're muted.
Thank you. Certainly that's a question that we have talked about as well. And in a honest response, I would love to see this college have some time to really work through the operational side of what happens in a unionized environment, set aside the financial, and then what has to happen operationally with everything that's going to be impacted. So Delegate, I understood your question very well.
Thank you. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Delegate Smith.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you to AFT and to Dr. McCurdy for being here today on this bill. That concludes the bill hearing on House Bill 374. We're now going to move to House Bill 15, an early little number. And before I begin, if you don't mind, if I make a quick announcement to the committee. We had a voting session at the beginning, very beginning, and we had 2 members absent that I have now been informed were actually in the waiting room and having technical difficulties actually moving into the committee. Our Chief of Staff, Nana, was working with them to get them moved in, and it didn't happen. So I want you to know that I am going to, at the end of our bill hearings today, give these 2 members an opportunity to vote on a bill that they actually were in the waiting room trying to get in to vote on. Okay, now, and that does not mean that that the rule you have to be in your seat to vote doesn't count moving forward. But these are the new things we're dealing with virtual hearings, and the staff did inform me that our 2 members who weren't here were actually here in the waiting room and having technical difficulties. Thank you for that. Delegate Pena-Melnick, welcome to the Appropriations Committee. And we're looking forward to hearing House Bill 15. But I will tell you, while you've been in the waiting room, very, very patient for your job, your bill to come up, I got a little bit intimidated because in the background, I saw all the pens of all the bills that you got passed. And I thought, oops, this delegate's got a pretty good track record here. I don't think I got that many pens up on my, I know I don't, on my wall. So if those are all the bills you got passed, I guess you're looking forward to getting this one passed too.
Amen. From your mouth to God's ears. You know, it takes a village. So even though we come up with a bill idea, we can't get it through without you and without my colleagues. So, you know, you don't put a bill on your own, certainly not. So I'm very grateful to you, leadership and colleagues. I want to say good afternoon, Chairman McIntosh, and thank you for letting me be in your committee, and also for being accommodating today, because I had another bill in another committee. So I want to thank your staff. They're wonderful. My staff really appreciates the generosity and flexibility. And I want to say, Vice Chairman Chang, congratulations on your new role. We both are in Anne Arundel County, so we're very proud of you. And members of the Appropriations Committee, I'm pleased to present to you House Bill 15, which will create the Governor's Office of Immigrant Affairs. We have all heard it said that America is a nation of immigrants. Likewise, Maryland is a state of immigrants. There are close to 1 million immigrants in our state, comprising 15% of our state's total population. The highest densities of immigrant populations are concentrated in Montgomery County and Prince George's County, but significant immigrant populations are also found in Anne Arundel, Howard, Baltimore, Frederick, Somerset, Washington, Charles, Talbot, Wicomico, Baltimore City, and St. Mary's County. Over the past 2 decades, more than 60% of our total population growth can be attributed to immigrants, which is significantly higher than the national average. But we're not doing a good job integrating immigrants into Maryland and making them full members of our Maryland team. And that's not good for them or for us. During this pandemic, I found myself piecemealing and calling every agency that I could. I put together a paper, which was, I call it the brown paper, which was a list of all the resources. And I actually gave it to our Attorney General, who actually placed it on his website, because no one in Maryland has such a list. And immigrants contribute immensely to our economy. Maryland's immigrant comprised 18.5% of the total civilian labor force and pay billions of dollars in state and federal taxes. 10.4 billion, Chairman McIntosh, to be exact. They're hard workers who value what our country has to offer. They know that here, more so than in other countries, the opportunities are bountiful. I am myself an immigrant, and I was born in the Dominican Republic. You know, my mother was a single mom. I'm first to go to college. And I would not be where I am if it were not for this wonderful country and the opportunities that it has. According to the Small Business Administration, the business ownership rate is higher among immigrants than the US-born community. Immigrants also form businesses at a higher rate than non-immigrants. Immigrants bring with them their passions, expertise, cultures, and desire to be accepted in our community. They hunger to belong and to contribute. We really do. Unfortunately, immigrants face barriers that make it harder for them to integrate into Teen Maryland. They struggle to get a seat at the table and are underrepresented in decision-making and leadership roles. In the General Assembly, there's only 4 of us that are actually from the Latino community out of 188. And their access to important services such as education, healthcare, and housing makes it more difficult for them to integrate and become fully contributing members of our society. We saw this with this pandemic. House Bill 15 addresses these problems by establishing a permanent position in the governor's office to address the immigrant issues. The office will be charged with increasing access to English learning, right? We want them to learn English. We want to tell them where they can go and take a class and make it easier. We want to assist and provide guidance in connection with the naturalization process because they do want to become citizen, but oftentimes they don't know where to go, how you fill out the application, who's there to help you with the questions about American history. And we want to connect them to the business resources, right? Because they want to stay in business. In addition, the office will not be working alone or reinventing the wheel, but would instead coordinate a network of neighborhood-based opportunity centers that provide immigrant services to our community. We all benefit when new arrivals to our state learn our language and culture and rapidly become fully contributing members of our society. That does not happen by accident. It happens with coordinated policies and resources wisely targeted where their needs are the greatest, and this is what this bill does. It is unjust for anyone, any human being, any immigrant, any person to face barriers and to work in the shadows, alienated from society. By providing culturally appropriate services like this bill does in a coordinated fashion, we can empower our immigrant population to achieve its potential, to be the best they can be. A reliable support system from the state, like this bill does, which oversees the well-being of this population, is a good start. It is the right thing to do. The bill will create a system where immigrants are better connected to employment opportunities and provide the resources they need to have success in our society and to fulfill the American dream. It would just make it easier. Thank you so much for allowing me to present to you this bill today.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Are there any questions of the sponsor, Delegate Bridges?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Delegate, for bringing this important piece of legislation to us. I agree with you. It is very important to establish this office and contribute or help to contribute to the well-being of our immigrants in the state of Maryland. And so I appreciate you bringing this bill. I just wanted to clarify, though, I know that the Governor's Office of Community Initiatives has a number of ethnic and cultural commissions that are a part of that office. So would this establish it within that office, or would this be a standalone new coordinating office of the governor, of 7 governor's offices?
So thank you for the question. So those other commissions are more social commissions, right? They're not there to actually provide resources, to do casework, to give, they're not there for that at all. They're just social gatherings. This office, this bill would be basically a separate office where the office will have a head of the office, a director that will serve at the pleasure of the governor and will advise the governor on the immigrant community and will work with the different nonprofits and organizations and bring them together, where they would establish a phone number, a line where people will call and ask for resources. So it's very different. This will actually do and make a difference.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Delegate Henson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Delegate Pena-Melnick, for, as Delegate Bridges stated, bringing this important piece of legislation. I saw in the bill that it speaks to English for speakers of other languages. Would the bill at all help with any federal mandates that we have for limited English proficiency requirements?
The bill actually would look at the, where it says on page 2, right here, ESOL program means English for speakers of other languages, meaning that it's not just Spanish, it's for any immigrant that we're addressing here, any immigrant in the US. And it will work with the state government and also will look at federal resources as well.
The limited English proficiency, is that a federal requirement that we have whenever we're accepting federal funds under, I believe it's Title VI of the Civil Rights Act, that we have to then make sure that if our population has a population that goes over a certain percentage, that English is not their first language, that we have access to government services and government resources to people in their native language. And if we're not fulfilling that, then we could be at risk of having our federal funding withdrawn if we don't have limited English proficiency standards to the government's satisfaction. Is that your understanding of the LEP?
That's correct.
And would
That's
this
correct.
bill help with that?
Yes.
Thank you.
It will, because it will, provide resources and be an asset so that the local jurisdictions can meet and respect that law and comply with that law.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Antione.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Delegate, for your presentation. And I didn't have a chance to read the entire bill yet, and I do agree with a lot of the premise the premise of assisting immigrants, especially, and I have a lot of immigrant family and friends. But my question, is there anywhere in here that differentiates between those that are here, maybe are immigrants that have become American citizens, with the legal process, I guess I should say, or is this not differentiate between those who are here in a legal manner and in illegally violating immigration law, federal immigration law?
So this bill basically deals with making it easier for any Maryland resident that is here, whether they're, legal, undocumented or documented. But Delegate, on page 2 of the bill, line 3, subsection D, it says immigrant means an individual who is a resident of the state, and to become a resident of the state, you need at least for tax purposes, 183 days. I don't know if that would change, but that is the law. And then it says it's not a citizen of the United States. Not being a citizen doesn't mean that you are undocumented. Not being a citizen, you can actually be a permanent resident who's here legally as well, and whose country of origin is a country other than the United States. So that is the definition according to the bill, line 327.
Thank you. No, I appreciate it. I guess, and just to follow up, and I, like I said, I do think there's a lot of good things. I guess my concern would be that you would have, especially during a time of the pandemic with high unemployment, that those who may be in violation of our immigration laws are benefiting from, I would imagine, a lot of job skill program or money from the taxpayer funded for jobs, skills, training, all that. Again, that may be in violation, but I do appreciate you bringing the bill, and I appreciate clearing that up for me. I'll definitely check out. What was that section again? I'm sorry.
That is page 2.
Page 2.
Line 3 until line 7.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'll take a look.
My pleasure.
Appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Delegate Krim.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Hello, Madam Vice Chair from Mason.
Good afternoon.
So I can't think of anybody more qualified to speak for the immigrant community than you, Madam Vice Chair.
Thank you.
In Frederick County, a council member has proposed a commission on immigrant affairs. So how do you foresee, if we have that here in Frederick County, and I'm not sure if they exist in other counties, but how do you foresee those two interacting if we have a state commission and a local commission?
So this will not actually, they will go hand in hand, because in the bill, on actually the bill right here says that the office shall establish a network of neighborhood-based opportunity centers that provide immigration services to immigrants. So what the bill would do, and then it goes on to say that they will work with different nonprofits and also, make sure that that they do referrals as well. So they will actually complement each other, because what this director is tasked with is to make sure that he or she becomes aware of all the resources that we have in Maryland, making sure it says that, the office shall establish a network of neighborhood-based opportunity center, meaning that they would, connect them, become aware of what's out there, be able to share with Frederick, with, the 23 counties in Baltimore City, what is out here for the immigrant community, right? Because right now, there's some organizations that are doing a great job, but it's all piecemeal, right? I had to put together that document for the Attorney General and for the community. Why not have an office at the state level that says, we are welcoming to immigrants. We want you to do well here. We know that you contribute and pay taxes and you work and you're good for this community. So your commission that Frederick will want to create would actually be an amazing asset for this director, because when people from Maryland, from Frederick call, that director is going to be able to say, here's this commission in Frederick. And by the way, here's how we can help Frederick if they had a need as well. And they would do all that coordination. So it will be a great asset.
Okay, thank you. Delegate McKay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Appreciate it. Delegate Pennick, good afternoon. How are you?
I'm doing well, and you?
Awesome and wonderful. Thank you.
That's a blessing.
Amen. Amen. So in some of the committee testimony that you're going to hear, there was some unfavorables, and they had mentioned that the bill suggests that there's an importance to create the trust in the immigrant community and that it is accomplished through civic engagement. However, instead of creating trust, this person believes that it would cause division among Maryland residents. How would you answer that?
I would say that it's to the contrary. And thank you so much, Delegate, for the question. I really appreciate you. Look, this does not create division. It's the opposite. The reason why I put it in is to make sure that there is support for immigrants, so they know what the rules are, right? They know, where resources are, so that they learned about civic engagement. They can learn the language as well. It will make it easier so that we can be neighbors and we can get along well. It's basically providing access to resources and support to those that are marginalized and disenfranchised. So this bill is helping people that lack the language, that are not familiar with the rules. And it also, in the bill, it helps people if they are seeking to become citizens. It will help, this office will help them connect to the federal government to be able to do their application to become citizens if that's what they wanted. So to the contrary, I would say respectfully for that person to read the bill, because it's truly a bill to make things better for people, for humans.
Well, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Thank you. I think that concludes the questions of the sponsors, so we'll move to our witnesses today. Our first witness, and just a reminder to all witnesses, you have 2 minutes. Our first witness is Maureen Sweeney, University of Maryland Carey Immigration Clinic.
Madam Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, committee members, thank you for hearing me. I have been working in Maryland since 1994 with the immigrant community, and I currently direct the immigration clinic at the University of Maryland Carey Law School. And I'm here to testify in support of HB 15 that would create the Office of Immigrant Affairs at the governor's office. I'm very familiar with the challenges of providing services to Maryland's immigrants because I've been doing it for a long time. The state has a widely diverse immigrant population. Everybody from Jewish refugees from the former Soviet Union to families fleeing Central America, gang violence in Central America, to medical professionals at our world-class hospitals and universities. We also have very disparate levels of resources in the different counties and very, very disparate access to information, as Delegate Peña-Melnick was explaining. What we don't have is that centralized statewide network or mechanism to coordinate the existing resources that we have. This network, this mechanism would encourage integration. It would also reduce the danger of exploitation and harm. People who are not citizens are subject to unique kinds of intimidation, scams, and a lack of information because they're unfamiliar with our system. The existing ethnic affairs offices are not the same thing. They would not address these unique needs and vulnerabilities that non-citizens have. We have good models for this kind of an office. The Mayor's Office of Immigrant Affairs in Baltimore is one example. I'm personally familiar with it, and it was uniquely positioned to respond to the needs of immigrants in the COVID crisis, and to respond to the needs of immigrants in recent years when we've had enforcement specifically targeted against our city's residents and specifically our Latino residents. This bill would create the neighborhood centers, the hotline that would allow people to give a safe space to report crimes against themselves and scams, and to get the information that they need. We're likely to have lots of changes, legal changes in the coming years under the Biden administration. And people are going to need good information. If they don't have good information, they will be taken advantage of by people who pose as lawyers, but are not. So I urge you to support House Bill 15, which would create all this benefit with very minimal cost to the state. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We're now going to turn to tableau blank.
I'm sorry, this is Dr. Sugarman. I'm a witness and I'm supposed to be seeing patients. Is there any way I could testify now? I'm on the list.
Sponsor, that's up to you. Do you want to move somebody up?
Yes, please. Dr. Sugarman has patience. Thank you for your flexibility, Chairman.
I will do it for you, Dr. Sugarman.
Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you. And you have 2 minutes.
Okay, thank you, Chairwoman McIntosh, Vice Chairman Chang, and members of the Appropriations Committee. I'm pleased to support House Bill 15, which would create the Governor's Office of Immigrant Affairs. I'm a native of Baltimore. I live in Potomac, Maryland. I'm a physician at Unity Healthcare. I have extensive experience providing healthcare and advocating for my immigrant patients. Due to this experience, I'm on faculty at Georgetown Law School. Throughout my career, providing care to the immigrant community has been tremendously rewarding and also challenging. This population faces many obstacles to obtaining quality care. Some include language barriers, lack of culturally appropriate care, and lack of health insurance. Outside of the health facility, many of my immigrant patients struggle with gaining employment and access to social services. As a result, this results in poor health outcomes and lower quality of life and higher mortality rates. I think of my patient Enrique, who came to the U.S. on a work visa. He works in a very crowded poultry plant, which puts him at a very high risk of getting infected with COVID-19. He fears getting fired if he complains to his boss. President Biden just announced that occupational health and safety is going to be a top priority of his. This office can help coordinate legal advice. We must do better. There are many gaps in services that are offered to immigrants, ranging from job opportunities to healthcare services. This population contributes so much to our society and yet still waits to be accepted in our society. We have a duty to ensure adequate resources are in place for their success. Through the Governor's Office of Immigrant Affairs, necessary services can be provided and improved. It also displays Maryland's support towards our immigrant community. House Bill 15 is part of the solution that addresses disparities and makes sure the voices of immigrant populations are heard. This bill intends to create an organizational framework where immigrants are better connected to the resources they need to achieve success in our society. I respectfully urge the committee members to vote favorably on this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Now we're going to move back to Pablo Blank.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Pablo Blanc. I am the Director of Immigrant Integration with CASA. CASA strongly supports the passage of House Bill 15, and the creation of the Office of Immigrant Affairs in Maryland, as many other states have already done that. I am an immigrant, one of those 900,000 living in Maryland that Delegate Peña Melik mentioned on her introduction. 15% of the Maryland population is foreign-born. That means 1 out of 6 who lives in Maryland. While it is true that we do have similar needs than the broader community, such as housing, healthcare, education, job opportunities, and childcare, we also have specific needs. Among them, learning English, learning how the financial system works in the US, how to pay taxes in Maryland, how to navigate government agencies to start businesses or other purposes, and how to naturalize for those who are eligible. The Office of Immigrant Affairs will be a great tool for the governor and Marylanders to help immigrants find the path to satisfy those needs, providing greater opportunities to those 900,000 of us to pursue happiness in our state. Please pass the House Bill 15 and lead us to the creation of the Office of Immigrant Affairs that will help us leave behind some divisions and create integration and union. Finally, I would like to thank Delegate Jocelyn Peña-Melink for introducing this bill and for the tireless and passionate commitment to serving our community. Thank you so much. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you. Thank you. We'll move now to Matthew Dolomer from Catholic Charities.
Good afternoon, Chair McIntosh and members of the committee. My name is Matthew Dollimore, and I am here representing Catholic Charities as director of the Esperanza Center. Esperanza provides comprehensive immigration services in the Baltimore region. That includes humanitarian legal services, English language instruction, case management, and free primary medical and dental care for the uninsured. I'm here today in support of HB 15. This bill in the presented Governor's Office of Immigrant Affairs closely mirrors the existing Mayor's Office of Immigrant Affairs in Baltimore City, known by the acronym MEMA. MEMA provides critical support and voice to the city's growing immigrant community, ensuring language access, process equity across city departments and programs, resource access, and full community consultation. That same support is not currently available at the state level. The current COVID-19 pandemic environment provides numerous examples of the need for this state office. One specific example, the state's COVID-19 vaccination registration page was translated into Spanish using a computer-generated system and not a trained human translator. As a result, critical vocabulary errors include the word race, which is translated as carrera, which in Spanish indicates a race you might run. The word address is translated as habla a, which means speak to. These avoidable and basic language errors in the middle of a pandemic serve only to confuse and restrict access to a life-saving vaccine at a critical time for Maryland's public health. In absence of a Governor's Office of Immigrant Affairs, there is no single point of contact at the state level to ensure issues of this nature are appropriately anticipated, prioritized, and addressed. The immigrant community contributes so much to this state and to our local communities. The Governor's Office of Immigrant Affairs is one step towards integrating support across state functions for this critical and valued community of Maryland residents. So thank you for considering our views. I urge a favorable vote on HB 15.
Thank you very much. And again, we'll have questions at the end of all of our public witnesses. Today, we also have Liz Anagoya of Visible Central Maryland.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, Vice Chair Chang, Delegate Peña-Melnik, and members of the Appropriations Committee. I am Liz Anagonio, representing both myself and Indivisible Central Maryland, a grassroots organization of constituents dedicated to protecting democratic and progressive values. Indivisible Central Maryland strongly supports House Bill 15, establishing a Governor's Office of Immigrant Affairs. Members of Central Maryland volunteer with a group called Asylum Helpers, an all-volunteer group that helps newly arrived asylee families. We assist with food and clothing, but our families also have complex needs such as childhood vaccinations, maternity care, dental care, or ESOL classes. Especially during the pandemic, they need help interacting with their child's school or applying for available benefits. Finding these resources is no easy task, even for English speakers who are familiar with Maryland's systems. There are lots of lists of services online, but they are often outdated or no longer available. As well, each county has different rules, offices, and resources. The asylee's native language may not be spoken. Having a centralized office for referrals, a hotline for specific assistance would allow families to find services more efficiently. The neighborhood resource centers would allow families to receive information specific to their locale and give them self-efficacy to access needed services themselves, especially for those who don't have cars. Lastly, we support the job search resources proposed in the bill. As our families are able to work and achieve self-sufficiency, they're able to give back to their communities. Although creating a governor's office of immigrant affairs will need funding, the cost may be offset somewhat by getting our immigrant and asylee Marylanders to work and paying taxes. Creating a statewide governor's office of immigrant affairs would be a powerful tool for improving the lives of our immigrant communities. For all these reasons, Indivisible Central Maryland asks for a favorable report on House Bill 15. Thank you all.
Thank you very much. Thank you for being here. And we're now going to move to Ms. Thacker. Is there a Thacker?
Yes. Hi, thank you, Chairwoman McIntosh, Vice Chairman Chang, and members of the Appropriation Committee. I want to thank Delegate Peña-Melnyk for giving me the opportunity and time to speak in support of House Bill 15, which would create the Governor's Office of Immigrant Affairs. My name is Archana Thacker. I'm a pharmacist working for the largest retail pharmacy chain, CVS Pharmacy. My family is one of those fortunate whose American dreams were materialized, but the road was very bumpy. I was born, raised, and did my undergraduate study in India before I migrated to USA in 1996 to live with my husband, who had migrated in 1994. When I moved here, we had no relatives or friends to depend on or to seek help from. As soon as we settled, I wanted to get my license to practice pharmacy. As I had no knowledge or resources, it took me 4 to 5 months just to understand the process, who to contact, what the requirements were, and how to register for the exams. After passing my first exam, the challenge was to earn an internship, which was mandatory before I could take my pharmacy board exam. And I was turned down for every intern position everywhere because I had no experience in the United States and I had no referrals. So I started working as a pharmacy technician and made my way up as an intern after 7 months. Today, I've been practicing pharmacy for 23 years and proudly serve as our community as frontline healthcare worker. I dedicate a lot of my time volunteering for nonprofit organizations to conduct free health fairs, vaccination clinics, the blood donation drives, and health awareness lectures. As an immigrant, I had to figure everything related to my career myself, with very little guidance or help from outside. There wasn't any agency or group that I was aware of that could have helped me through this process. A separate office, such as Office of Immigrant Affairs, could help assist immigrants in many areas, such as hearing to their concerns, guiding them, helping them in their careers, and helping to ease their transition to this country. So when they succeed, they add more value to our society and help our economy grow. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Thank you very much. This concludes the testimony in favor of House Bill 15. Are there any further questions of any of our public witnesses? Okay, thank you. We're going to move to those who are here to testify unfavorable on the bill. And their first.
Thank you. Okay.
Our first witness will be Vince McCove. Vince? Is there a Vince here? Well, let's move just so that we're.
Madam Chair, I believe that Sherry Rendall also has not entered the waiting room, so you can move to the next one.
All right. My apologies. I cannot pronounce your first name, but the last name is Tu.
Yes, Chen Tu. Sorry, Sherry and I actually was in Senate committee, and we just finished our testimonies, and she probably was in question and answer session.
Okay.
So she probably will join soon, but the staff, please actually keep looking for people who wants to join, because I called a couple of times. So, but anyway, I just joined. Sorry to miss the pro side. I'm here to testify against. Good afternoon, Madam Chair and respectful committee members. My name is Chen Tu. I'm a legal immigrant and a U.S. citizen residing in Rockville, Maryland. I'm here to testify against based on two reasons. First one is immigration matter is federal government's responsibility. I immigrated to the U.S. legally 25 years ago, and I don't recall any issues that needing state of Maryland government's involvement. Create such office will actually complicate the situation and add more confusion to the immigrants population. It only means that immigrants will have to pay more to the lawyers and more government agencies. That is actually direct against, contradict to the intention of this bill. So creating another office, creating more regulations, and under the name of service, it actually will complicate issues, because a lot of people coming here not knowing the U.S. Government and how it's structured might fall into certain traps, especially from the private sector, the legal service they claim to provide the immigrants. Second is, state of Maryland is already in fiscal crisis. And I know there's one bill that needs billions of dollars. And where do we find those money, right? So I don't understand why you want to kind of use already stretched budget to create a non-value add government functions. Many middle-class citizens in Maryland, I know, I have a couple of friends already left Maryland and moved to a state that charged less taxes, right? Because I asked them, they said, oh, I have no problem with Maryland. It's just like tax is too high. I can't afford, right? So this kind of bill, I mean, not just this bill, any bill that create more fiscal burdens without adding much value to the taxpayers will accelerate this trend. You will see lots of actually tax-paying Marylanders move out of Maryland. And what's you left is people who actually draw welfare. So how do you balance the budget if that happens? That's why I'm against this bill, because I still want my kids to live in Maryland, if situation doesn't get worse. Thank you.
Well, I'd love to talk to you about budgeting and how we do that, and revenue projections and how all that happens, and why we in fact do pass bills with fiscal notes once in a while that are pretty important to the majority of Marylanders. But that's another time, okay? We won't get into a budget debate today. Let's stick to this bill. Delegate Mangione, you have a question, sir.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. And to Chang, I don't know if you can hear me, but thank you for sharing your story. And I guess my question for you would be, do you think, I mean, you said you came here, you followed the legal matters in which to do so, and it seems like you're doing well. My question, I guess, would be for those who are here in violation of the federal immigration law and say live in an opposing state, or I'm sorry, not an opposing state, a bordering state, do you think bills like this would make it more attractive to have people here in violation of immigration law to come to our state because of bills like this?
Well, I mean, I'm a straightforward guy because I am a small business owner. I always look at things from money viewpoint, right? So direct answer is obviously yes, because basically everyone act according to their own economic interests, right? If you have created a policy environment that want to reward people, like whatever they do, they said, oh, either they violate law, you said, oh, okay, it doesn't matter if you live in Maryland, we're gonna give you money, we're gonna give you assistance. Obviously, you're gonna draw lots of more people like that to state of Maryland, right? It's not for any political reason, it's purely economic reasons, right? And So state of Virginia, actually, I don't know exactly what they do. Somehow they have slightly unfriendly policy. I mean, they are changing as well. So they always have an edge. So lots of people who stay here illegally, they tend to move to Maryland because Maryland provides better welfare, better whatever assistance. So it actually increased our tax burden. This is just my economic analysis. You guys are expert. So
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you, Jen.
I see no further questions. Is Ms. Randall, has she joined us now?
No, ma'am.
Okay, let me just say this, that Ms. Randall or anyone who got caught over in the Senate side is absolutely welcome to put their testimony in a written form and submit it to the committee. And we will be very happy to entertain that. So with that, I believe that concludes, it does, the House Bill 15. Thank you, everyone, for your patience and your questions. And let's hope the good doctor got into that operating room fast. Thank you very much. Have a great day, those of you who joined us for that. We're now going to move to House Bill 364, Delegate Young, who I think is here.
I am. Thank you, Madam Chair, Chair Chang, esteemed members of the committee. Happy to present to you HB 364, State Finance Procurement Central Collection Unit Powers. For the record, I'm Delegate Pat Young. Happy to introduce this bill. Again, last year we had a hearing, but did not move on it. We ran out of time, but happy to introduce it again because I believe the subject matter is pertinent, especially under the conditions we've been in since the start of the pandemic. Simply put, the bill will reduce the state's central collection unit's ability to charge up to 20% fees when collecting a fee down to 5%. We also have an amendment after working with the AG's office and the advocates that might impact that a little bit more. I'll go into that in a second. This will address the high cost levied on struggling individuals and working families that owe debt to the state of Maryland. I don't have to, especially this committee, anybody that's been involved in the legislature, the impact that the pandemic has had economically on our constituents and the folks and people in Maryland has been catastrophic, related to how are you going to pay, how are you going to put food on your table.
Okay, I am in.
All been dealing with, trying to help and connect folks to resources that can help them keep their head above water. This has been an issue long before the pandemic, and there's been a number of studies that I'm sure many of our colleagues are aware of. The Federal Reserve had a report that 40% of Americans could not handle a $400 unexpected expense, whether that's a car breaking down or a debt incurred that they needed to incur related to something within their lives. Also, in 2018, the United Way's Alice report mentioned that there was an increase of 22% between the years of 2010, 2016 of Marylanders, specifically Marylanders, that can't meet basic needs across the state just for what they need to take care of themselves and their families. And that was between 2010 and 2016, not even considering what's happened over the last year. What we're trying to do, and the intent of the bill, has always been to reduce the impact that the Central Collections Unit could have on folks that are already suffering from an economic unstable environment. If anyone that's had to go through Central Collections, whether it's for a debt paid through insurance, whether it's through being a student and being late on your tuition payments, you're already at a tough spot, or you would have already paid the bill to the Central Collections Unit. So by this time, you're already in a financial crisis, and on top of what you already owe, the Central Collections Unit at this time is charging 17%. They could go up to 20%. This would reduce that to 5%, taking that burden off of Marylanders and then off of consumers. I do want to point out A few things, we have some amendments. The way that the bill was originally written would take away the power of the Central Collections Unit to settle a claim or debt without suit. That was not the intent. So we have an amendment to take that language out to make sure that they can fulfill their obligation with any legal means available. This would also reduce the fiscal note in the first year by 4.6 million. They didn't go into the out years related to how much it would cost by keeping that language in. Also, the AG released their COVID-19 Access to Justice Task Force report, which had a recommendation to reduce the fee that the Central Collections Unit offers to Marylanders. Their amendment that we've requested, and we're having draft, we don't have a copy for you. When we do, we will submit to the committee, would increase the fee that we had in the original bill from 5% to 6%, but would only apply to individuals and would not apply to businesses. We're open to that language, and so are the advocates, and we're working on getting that language now, which would also impact the fiscal note and reduce it from this year, from fiscal year 2021 and into the out years. So with all of that information, I appreciate the opportunity to present the bill. Again, happy to answer any questions, and I urge a favorable report. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions of the sponsor? I see none. All right, we will move now to, is Christopher Drews here? Christopher Drews.
We have not had him enter the waiting room.
Very good. All right, we do have a couple of unfavorable. Anthony Fugit. And Jesse Lawyer. Central Collections Unit. Okay.
I know that they are here.
They are here? Are we waiting to get them in? Oh, good afternoon. Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Go ahead. Yes.
Madam Chair, Anthony Fugit is here.
Go ahead. You're up.
Oh, okay, Madam Chair. Okay. Yes, we are here, or I am here.
Do you have testimony? Do you have testimony for this bill? Can you hear me?
It's delayed, Madam Chair. I do apologize. Good afternoon, Madam Chair, and members of the Appropriations Committee. My name is Anthony Fugit, and I am the Director of the Central Collection Unit for the state of Maryland. Also with me is Jesse Lawyer, who is the Deputy Director for the Central Collection Unit. And I would ask that with your permission that his mic be open so that he could speak as well for any questions that you may have.
Very good. Thank you.
Okay, we have prepared a written statement that hopefully you've all had an opportunity to look at it. And I would just highlight some of the things that were mentioned in the report today. First of all, I would hope that we would all agree that the state has the responsibility to collect the delinquent debts that are owed to them. And if we agree on that, the question becomes, how do we fund that collection effort? When the Central Collection Unit was created, the intent was that the people who in fact owed the debt would be responsible for the payment of the collection of the debt, and created a special fund and an organization that was special funded that basically runs its operations on the 17% or the fee that is charged. And the thought was that the burden would not be placed on all of the people of the state of Maryland, the people who pay their bills, to be responsible for paying for the collection of delinquent debt. Basically, this bill would change that model, and it would require general funding to support its operation. And that has some other negative effects to it, in that the Central Collection Unit also can incent its employees to, if you would, provide high quality collection efforts and quality service to the people that it attempts to collect from. And that's based on this ability to support itself. And with the reduction to even 6% would not give us the ability to support ourselves. That management tool would be taken away completely. And we see that as a problem. When people think about debts owed to the state of Maryland, they tend to look at the extreme in that, you hear about the easy pass accounts that are extremely high. But we looked at the numbers, and the average debtor owes a little over $1,000 to the state of Maryland, and that includes the 17% burden that has been added to it, which equates to about $170. And I'm glad to hear that we can, if with the amendment, offer settlement agreements. Most of debts would be offered payment plans, and they would go on a year or 2-year payment plan, which would in fact cost about $7 a month if in fact they're an average debtor. So the burden is not extensive in terms of what it costs. Most people think of a collection fee as a percentage added on. The reality is it's a one-time charge for the collection of that debt.
Okay, you'll need to summarize now.
Okay, so I would hope that you would be an unfavorable report on this bill. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Lawyer?
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the committee. I didn't have any prepared testimony. I'm here to assist with questions from the committee regarding the bill.
Very good. Okay, thank you. Then let's get right to that. Are there any questions of our two public participants? Yes, Delegate Henson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It sounds like the opposition to the bill surrounds two issues, one being the loss of the dedicated funding, being that it's a special fund, and then the second was the ability to enter into settlement agreements. Sounds like a substantial part of what you're able to do. With the amendment to allow you to enter into settlement agreements, if the funding were guaranteed to be at least level funded from general funds, if that were made up, it sounds like that you wouldn't be opposed to the bill. Do I have that correct? It's not the policy, it was just those two issues. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Thank you.
Very good. Delegate Proctor? Unmute.
Excuse me, Madam Chair, thank you. My question is, what percentage of the debts are you able to collect completely of the ones that you have?
Jesse, do you have those numbers?
The numbers vary by type of debt. We have major debt lines. One of those major debt lines would be, say, MVA insurance lapse violations. Because of the like vehicle service restrictions that go along with those types of debts, and the fact that debtors have to renew registrations every couple of years, our debt clearance on that particular category could be up to 60% over a period of 2 to 3 years. Okay. On other portfolios, say MV or Easy Pass toll violations, much higher volume of transactional debts, but our clearance on those debts may be 6% for in-state debts. So it really varies by debt type and what restrictions we're allowed to put in place as far as the collection of those debts are concerned, like such as like a vehicle services hold, that type of thing. School debt's another one where a student can't may not be able to re-register for classes until they make a payment plan with us. So those have a higher repayment level.
What kind of debt would you have in order to not be able to register in school? I mean, is this a debt owed directly to the institution?
Yeah, keep in mind all debts that are assigned to CCU, they're not debts generated by CCU. They're all held by other state agencies that are transferred to us for collection. So if a student has fees that are owed to the school and they attempt to collect those debts for 90 days, 180 days, and are unsuccessful, they would pass those debts to CCU for collection.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any further questions? Okay, seeing none. Thank you very much for being here with us today. We appreciate your input. And that concludes the bill hearing. on House Bill 364. Thank you, Delegate Young. We're now going to move to House Bill 86. Our own Delegate Ford.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, and members of my appropriations family. I wish we were in our hearing room together, and I look forward to when we will be. For the record, this is Delegate Kathy Forbes, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to present HB 86, a bill that we are calling the Green Building Restoration Act. This bill, with Senator Hedelman as the sponsor, passed the Senate floor last session, but unfortunately never received a hearing on the House side with the shortened 2020 session. Now I'd like to take you back to 2008, when this body passed a landmark high performance building act that required all schools and public buildings built with state funds to be built as green buildings and achieve either a Silver LEED certification or a 2 globes rating on the Green Globe scale. That bill in 2008 passed the House 135-1, and that bill passed the Senate 43-3. The legislature at that time felt that we should be using best practices with state dollars to require green building. Now I'm going to take you to the reason for today's bill. In the 2018 session, based on the work of the Knott Commission, the body passed the 21st Century Schools Facility Act. A very late amendment to that bill changed all the shalls and shoulds in the Green Building Act to encourages. So today we encourage jurisdictions using state tax dollars to use best practices to build green sustainable buildings, but we no longer require it. This bill would restore that requirement and the verification provision the state previously mandated. You received written testimony, and we'll hear from panelists, architects and engineers who will explain how necessary it is to make this change. They will share the very good news that there are multiple paths to the verification process. A building can go through the LEED certification process or the International Green Construction Code process or Green Globes. There were many concerns that the LEED process was onerous, particularly for rural jurisdictions. And they will share, the experts will share how those burdens have been alleviated. Green sustainable buildings have lower environmental impact when we build them, and they save taxpayers money over the life of the buildings because they have lower operating costs and maintenance costs. When we unlock the built to learn money for school construction, those buildings should be built as green sustainable buildings. HB 86 restores the integrity and intent of the High Performance Building Act, and I ask for a favorable report. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Are there any questions of the sponsor? Any questions of the sponsor? I see none, so we will now move to citizens who come today to testify. And remember, for those of you who are here, you have a 2-minute time frame. We'll go to FSI Engineers, Mr. Benjamin Rouse. Are you here? I don't see you. How about Allison Blackwelder?
Yes, I'm here.
Good. Why don't you go at this time?
Sounds great. Again, my name is Allison Blackwelder, and I am with the U.S. Green Building Council. On behalf of USGBC, I respectfully offer our comments in support of HB 86. As a Montgomery County, Maryland resident and a proud public school parent, I appreciate your consideration of the following remarks. USGBC is best known for our LEED green building rating system. A core area of our work is green public schools that are well designed, constructed, maintained, and operated to facilitate learning, health and wellness, and decrease operating budgets through reduced utility costs. USGBC supports House Bill 86 that will amend and clarify the green building requirements to support high-quality green schools in Maryland. The bill will remove language that requires the Maryland Green Building Council to develop guidelines for new public school buildings that achieve the equivalent of LEED without requiring an independent certification that the buildings have achieved the required standards. Under this paragraph, enacted in 2019, the Maryland GBC was required to establish green school guidelines, achieving the equivalent of, but without green building certification. Prior to this change, state-funded public schools in Maryland fell under the State Green Building Program, which required them to earn green building certification or meet the IGCC code. Independent third-party verification is a critical component to building high-performing schools. Certification like LEED provides valuable transparency and assurance to the legislature and to Maryland residents that their tax dollars are being used to support high-performing schools by ensuring project teams deliver on crucial aspects for a lower level of LEED certification for schools in rural areas of Maryland, which may not be able to get certain credits in LEED, such as those related to public transit. We support this change to ensure students throughout the state can benefit from learning in green schools. Thank you to Delegate Forbes for introducing the bill, and thank you for the committee for considering it today. We urge the swift passage of the bill, and we offer our expertise in this area if needed. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. You hit the 2-minute mark beautifully. We have Liz Ferretto here. Lisa.
Hello, Madam. Can you hear me? Madam Chair and members of the committee, thank you so much for this opportunity to provide testimony in support of House Bill 86, the Green Building Restoration Act. I am a Baltimore City resident, a sustainability architect and advocate, members of both the AIA and the USGBC. I served as a member of the Maryland Green Building Council for 3 years, and I'm now a Baltimore City Sustainability Commissioner with Delegate Smith. House Bill 86 restores the intent of the High Performance Act by 3 main alterations, as Delegate Forbes mentioned. First, it removes that confusing section added as part of House Bill 1783. This unnecessary section required the council to, quote, develop guidelines for new public buildings to achieve the equivalent of LEED without certification, end quote. This language was and is not needed, as that existing law did not require certification. In 2014, while I was on the council, we updated the program to include that International Green Construction Code, a path without certification. As stated in the council supplement, we have adopted the IGCC as an alternate compliance path to minimum LEED silver, end quote. The addition of this confusing language and subsequent guidelines allows public schools to have an architect simply state that the project complies without any documentation or validation. Removing this language restores the intent to the previous compliance path without certification, IGCC, or with certification, LEED or Green Globes. Secondly, this bill amends the percentage of state funding required. And lastly, it amends the LEED certification level required for schools in rural areas. These amendments all restore the intent of that very important 2008 high performance bill, ensuring that Maryland continues to be an accountable and responsible sustainability leader, protecting our state finances, the natural environment, and most importantly, our people. I look forward to the favorable passing of this bill.
Thank you. Very good. We now will move to Chris Parts.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the committee. I'm Chris Parts with AIA Maryland, representing nearly 2,000 architects across the state of Maryland, and we're here in favor of House Bill 86. I'd like to speak to 3 key points that are particularly focused on the value of third-party certification of design and construction measures in high-performance buildings, a key point that Delegate Forbes had mentioned in her introduction. First is that third-party review provides a consistency of measure and evaluation. As an architect, when we submit drawings to be reviewed for a building permit, they have to go through either a plan review or a third-party review. The paths that are chosen for green certification all impact the health of the community, the occupants, and performance of our buildings. While we as architects do our best, an independent review provides additional attention to the paths that are chosen. Secondly, aspirational goals are diminished without a third-party review. Pursuing sustainable design credits is a collaborative effort with a minimum threshold that we've set. But if you take a look at all of the LEED schools that have been accomplished in the past since 2008, over half of those schools have exceeded the minimum threshold achieved and achieved a LEED Gold certification or higher. A design goal validated by an independent reviewer is a clear statement of achievement. It's meaningful to those involved, and it provides a motivation to push harder, not just meet the minimum standards. And finally, the third-party review enhances the authority to gather information on project performance. Getting clients to agree to documenting performance over time can be challenging, and the third-party review simply adds a level of oversight that makes it easier to happen. We use that information to inform our designs in the future and use that as a learning tool towards moving us towards zero energy schools. So in summary, this bill simply asks a little more of our state-funded projects. It provides better, healthier environments for our students, and we ask for your support of House Bill 86. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Now let's see, did Benjamin come back in? Is he here? I don't think so. So do we have any questions of the public that came to testify in favor of the bill? Yes, Delegate Novotny.
Thank you, ma'am. Question for the people who came here to testify today is, what is the cost, either per square foot or project, for a LEED certification, and how is that covered in respect to this bill?
Lisa, can you take that? Thank you.
Yeah. There's been many studies about the cost of LEED. That's often a question we get as architects and designers of green buildings. And the simple answer is it really just depends. There's studies that show that non-certified projects and LEED Platinum projects can range to non-certified projects. So as architects, it is our work to build to the budget and to the schedule. So we can make it work with no additional cost. Also, if you wait until the last minute and add LEED, of course, there can be some additional cost. This bill, though, allows a path without LEED to IGCC. So this bill does not require that you have to get certification. You can with LEED or Green Globes, or you can follow the IGCC path.
And I'm assuming, ma'am, that path does not require a certain cost. You just certify that you are a certain level of efficiency. So not a certification, but an efficiency metric.
Exactly. So they're all set up a little bit differently. So the Maryland High Performance Building Program sets up minimum guidelines for things that we think are important to the state, on energy efficiency, water efficiency, indoor air quality, things like that. So regardless if you follow LEED, Green Globes, or IGCC, you will meet a certain energy performance. You might get some points, 10 points in LEED, you might get 20 points in Green Globes, you'll get no points in the code because it's the Green Construction Code, but it ensures some sort of equivalency across schools using different rating systems. And we thought that was important because the original bill did reference LEED. And as we have more options, we like to give people the options, but we also want to hold the state accountable for energy efficiency and healthy schools for our children.
And then final, is the intent of the bill, and I think the sponsor has just left, to create the efficiency or the certification? And do you understand what I'm asking? So which side are we trying to get after?
I think the name of this bill is beautiful, the Green Building Restoration Act, and Delegate Forbes, you really sort of explained it. One of the things that we're just trying to do is remove this confusing language so we can get back to the great bill that we had. The language that was added as part of House Bill 1783 kind of confused things and basically took away all accountability. And basically, I could just write a letter saying, it meets LEED, and I would be done with it. So removing that language now makes people do what they've been doing since 2008, pick a path and follow it and meet the minimum performance guidelines.
Thank you, ma'am.
Does that help?
Thank you. And Delegate, I do appreciate your questions. They were great questions. There is a history on this committee with the Knott Commission, with the recommendations, and then what happened in a subsequent bill. So we'd be happy, a couple of us, to sit down and walk through that with you, just so you understand. But those are your instincts were good. Okay, great questions. Okay. All right, I believe that concludes the bill hearing. I see no other questions on this bill. Thank you all for being here with us, albeit Zoom, and have a great day. Did I hit everybody? I think I did. Thank you. That concludes the bill hearing on House Bill 86. We're now going to move to House Bill 45. Our same Delegate Forbes.
Thank you. I'm still happy to be here. And for the record, it's Delegate Kathy Forbes, and I appreciate this opportunity to present House Bill 45, a bill that would allow employees of the Baltimore County Public Library System to form an employees organization and engage in collective bargaining. I had a wonderful opportunity to meet with library employees that are proponents of this bill. And what I loved about them most is that they love their work. They're incredibly passionate about the work they do. But they would just like better communication between management and staff and input before decisions are made. Currently today, library employees in Montgomery County and Prince George's County already enjoy these rights of collective bargaining, and legislation was passed in 2013 that extends those rights to Howard County public library employees. This bill is cross-filed in the Senate with Senator Hedelman as the sponsor, and she'll have a hearing on it next week. I want to bring your attention to there is favorable written testimony and support from the Baltimore County administration on this bill. They recognize, rightfully so, that Baltimore County Public Library employees are uniquely positioned to contribute ideas for improving our library operations countywide for both the staff and our residents. And there is also favorable with amendments testimony from the Board of Trustees of our library system. They support the right of employees to seek collective bargaining rights. I apologize, but these amendments arrived very late to Senator Hedelman and I, and we have shared them with the proponents of the bill. And after review, we believe we can reach a consensus with the amendments and move this bill forward. So I appreciate your consideration, and I ask for a favorable report on HB 45. Thanks.
Thank you. Any questions of the sponsor? Any questions, sir? Looks like a straightforward bill, but any questions? Okay. You do have two people signed up to testify. Natalie Eddington from Baltimore County Public Library. Are you with us? Please welcome.
Yes, I'm here.
Welcome, Natalie.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chairwoman, Mr. Vice Chair, and members of the committee. My name is Natalie Eddington, and I'm the interim co-director at the Baltimore County Public Library. I'm also speaking on behalf of James Cook, the other interim co-director.
Public Library.
Today, I'm sorry. Together, we've shared the director responsibility since the fall when former director Paula Miller retired. So I'm also here with Maureen Walsh-David, who you'll hear from in a minute. I'll let her introduce herself. We support the efforts to allow our employees to pursue collective bargaining, but are proposing amendments that will ensure clearer employee protections and make it consistent with legislation guiding collective bargaining for libraries across Maryland. Baltimore County Public Library is an independent county agency that is governed by a board of library trustees. The board determines library policy, rules, regulations, and bylaws for use of the library and the conduct of its business. We currently have 575 staff members, that's 302 full-time members and 273 part-time. Our staff are a critical part of our organization, and it is their creativity and innovation that drives our ability to serve your constituents in new and exciting ways, and we are always grateful for their work. Again, library administration respects and supports the right for employees to pursue collective bargaining. We believe our amendments to House Bill 45 will ensure that management rights are included in the bill, increase employee protections, and clarify essential elements of the bill that are currently unclear and inconsistent with our sister jurisdictions, such as the definitions for employee and bargaining units and an ambiguous reference to the Baltimore County Code, which does not apply to library employees. We are currently working with the bill sponsors, including your colleague Delegate Forbes, to draft amendments. Our proposed amendments will make this bill effective, clear, and more closely aligned with the legislation passed by this body in 2013 to address the same concern in another jurisdiction of the state. We want to be sure that we have a fair bill in place so that staff can make a decision on pursuing collective bargaining. So I respectfully request that the committee consider the proposed amendments and ensure that they are included in the bill before giving it a favorable vote. Thank you for your time and consideration, and I'm happy to answer questions when the time is right.
Thank you. And you made it just under the 2-minute line. You're doing good. Thank you. Are there any questions? We have Maureen. Is it Maureen David here? I saw her, but I no longer see her. Is she here? She was here.
Somehow she got into the waiting room again and is coming back now.
Good, I'm glad. We'll let Maureen in, and then we'll hear from Maureen, and then I'd be happy to introduce her, but I no longer see her. Maureen, are you here? She was here. Good.
Somehow she got into the waiting room again and is coming back now.
Good, I'm glad. We'll let Maureen in, and then we'll hear from Maureen, and then I'd be happy to. Okay, Maureen, the floor is yours. Maureen, are you here? Right here. Good.
Somehow she got into the waiting room again and is coming back now.
Good, I'm glad. We'll let Maureen in, and then we'll hear from Maureen, and Maureen is here. Maureen, say something. Let's see if we. Maureen? Okay. All right, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. Executive decision here. Delegate Forbes, will you help Maureen submit her testimony in writing? She seems to be going
writing.
back.
She did submit it in writing, so it is there in your folder. And she needs to, like on talk radio, turn down your radio. We're hearing her watch the delayed hearing.
Yeah, I don't know.
Not hearing her speak.
There, so if she doesn't mind, I apologize. It's just she's going in and out. So are there any questions, by the way, of our wonderful folks from the Baltimore County Public Library on this bill? We thank you for being here with us, and we do look forward to working with you. Yes. Delegate
Excuse me, Madam Chair. I see Jamie Caldwell, who was on my list of people in the room. She's a library employee, and she can speak.
Fine.
And Madam Chair, Bridget Fitzgerald from the union is also on the call, and they were on my list of people to speak.
Okay, go ahead.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you for calling on me.
That's okay. I'm going to allow them. Jamie, go ahead.
Thank you for calling on me. Thank you, Madam Chair, and the members of the committee. This is my first time testifying, and I'm honored that I get to speak with you on the importance of having a union for the Baltimore County Public Library staff. My name is Jamie Caldwell. I work at the Parkville branch. I'm a full-time librarian too, and I have more than 7 years with BCPL. I also live in District 43, and I'm proud to call Chairwoman McIntosh my delegate. I'd like to summarize a bit about why this is important to me and my colleagues. With a union, we can have representation, collective bargaining, and a more equitable workplace, and have a voice and vote on a contract. In addition, a union will ensure that all employees will be treated in a fair and just manner, particularly in regards to part-time employees. They'll have the ability to participate in the pension plan, just as the full-timers have. This is important because the pension plan is strictly employee contributions only. It's not subsidized in any way. Part-time employees will also be offered benefits like health insurance, life insurance, dental, vision, and then also a union will allow us to have labor professionals represent us. I'd like to see a time where we're no longer alone or intimidated if someone is forced to attend a closed door meeting with their supervisors. And I'd also like to see hiring practices at BCPL changed to represent the racial makeup of our community. There are plenty of qualified applicants that exist in our county, but our makeup here in BCPL doesn't match that. I'd also like to say that we'd like to have collective bargaining for BCPL so that we can be heard with an open mind and respected on the job. All that to say, I love my work. I'm so proud to be part of BCPL. I think it's really important that everyone is having a chance to feel that way. And the most reasonable way I can see forward is through unionizing with BCPL.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you for coming down to be a part of this process. And by the way, Delegate Forbes, I do apologize. You had 2 bills in a row and I accidentally flipped 2 pieces of paper over and skipped over 2 or 3 of your folks who've come to testify. So that was my fault. I apologize. We have also Bridget Fitzgerald.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and the distinguished members of the committee. My name is Bridget Fitzgerald, and I'm the organizer with the International Association of Machinists. We're also known as the IAM, or the Machinists Union. The campaign to organize Baltimore County Public Library System started about 2 years ago when I met first time with a few of the employees. Many people wonder how library staff came to work with the machinists, and the answer is who we are as a union and what employees want. Over 130 years ago, the IAM was formed in a secret meeting in a railroad pit in Atlanta, but we have evolved into an international organization that also represents employees in numerous industries such as the airlines and manufacturing and healthcare, aerospace, the federal government, as well as in the public sector employees with the state, county, and municipal governments. Employees want a union committed to the process, and they want to negotiate a contract, provide excellent representation, and educate them on how to work together in unity and solidarity. There are many good unions in this labor movement, but the IAM is second to none. And BCPLs did their research and they came to us because we're the best fit for them. It's not easy for workers to unionize, and even if this bill passes, it's not done. We must show enough interest to hold the election, and then we have to win it. A state statute created this library system. We need HR 45 to pass for BCPL employees to move forward in that election process. And I would like to note at this point that, yes, there are some amendments that have been brought to the attention at the last minute. However, I think that they're not as simple as they may seem, and that there are 2 other jurisdictions within the state of Maryland that have unionized. One of them is Montgomery County and one of them is Prince George's County. And neither of those legislation processes is the same as the 2013 Howard County. Those 2 jurisdictions have the labor code that applies to county employees, apply to the Baltimore County, I'm sorry, the particular county library employees. And I think with regard to the amendments, there's some confusion, and they're trying to apply Howard County law or code to Baltimore County. So there's a lot to be worked out there, but I do think that we can move forward because it's not easy for any group to unionize. And if you talk to these employees, as Jamie just did, you'll note that they love their job. They're proud to serve the community, and they hope to make BCPL their career. And they know there's nothing that is perfect, but with a union contract, they can preserve the things that they love the most, and then they can work and have a voice in improving the things that aren't working so well. Essentially, BCPL employees want what I presume every employee wants, and that is the best work environment in order to realize his or her full potential. And so we ask for you to vote in favor of this bill without the amendments so that we can move forward to forming a union. Thank you for your time. And I don't know if you realize, but there's a third.
Yes, I do. I do.
Okay. Thank you very much, Madam Chairman, and I appreciate your time.
You're welcome. Anita Bass.
Yes. Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. It's my honor to be here before you to testify and share my thoughts on why attaining collective bargaining for Baltimore County Public Library is important. My name is Anita Bass, and I have worked for the library system proudly for 8 years. I also live in District 6, and I'm happy to be represented by Delegate Metzgar. I also would like to say that having a union gives us a chance to vote on matters that directly affect us. It is an opportunity to have a voice at work and set rules to settle disputes and disagreements. We all strive for better communication, especially when it comes to our concerns. Recently, our branch had an employee who reportedly tested positive for the virus, and unbelievably, the employees were not told about this until approximately 2 weeks later. Something about an oversight. So even though I am a full-time employee, one of the issues is better benefits for part-time employees who do not have health care. I also believe in transparency in promotions and in hiring practices. Our library does not reflect the diversity of our communities, and that would be wonderful if it did. Like everyone else, the pandemic has taken a toll on all workers. I simply want a voice during these difficult times where my suggestions for a better workplace are heard and will be taken seriously. Thank you for your time, for giving me this opportunity to voice my concerns. I hope that you will support HB Bill 45 legislation that will allow us to have collective bargaining. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Are there any questions of these citizens who've come to testify on the bill? Okay, thank you very much. And thank you, Delegate. And sorry that I got my sheets shuffled. It's a byproduct of sitting on your sofa instead of at a nice desk down there in Annapolis, you know. Citizens who've come to testify on the bill. Yeah. Pardon me? Okay, thank you very much. You're very welcome. Have a great day. Okay, now we're going to move to House Bill 125. We have Delegate Learman here.
I am here, Madam Chair.
Welcome back to the Appropriations Committee.
Thank you. Always a pleasure to see all of you. I'm hoping the third year's the charm for this bill.
For this bill? Okay.
Yes. So first, I want to start by commending the University of Maryland College Park on their new partnership with the Jordan McNair Foundation to continue to honor his life and legacy on the campus. And just congratulate the McNair family as well, and my condolences. I also want to provide an update. Last year this time, it looked like the NCAA was going to adopt rules regarding name, image, and likeness usage for their players and their student athletes, but that is no longer the case. They were scheduled to vote on new rules last week. They canceled that vote, and there is no rescheduling apparent for any time in the future. It has been delayed indefinitely. So the NCAA, we do not expect them to act on this anytime soon. So again, this is the bill. You've heard it before, that we follow the lead of now 5 other states have passed this bill since we started talking about it a couple years ago. And in fact, Florida's goes into effect this July 1st. This bill follows their lead. 5 other states, 35 other states who have similar proposals filed this year to ensuring that intercollegiate student athletes at public universities are not prohibited from using their name, image, or likeness to earn income. So again, on every campus in America right now, every college student who is not an NCAA athlete has the right to earn money in any legal way they want, using their name, image, or likeness, whether that's inventing a social media website, selling artwork, performing. This bill ensures that all students have the right to earn money and use their name, image, and likeness. Student athletes lose these rights when they become NCAA athletes. And this bill restores those NIL rights and allows them to generate benefits well beyond, I think, the football and men's basketball team, right? This also, female athletes have a very short amount of time in their lives that they can earn any income off of their status as athletes. And this would enable them to do that in college. Also, we know that athletes from disadvantaged backgrounds and students of color who disproportionately could earn revenue generated by their athletic talent would benefit greatly. So the NCAA's highly restrictive approach to athletes' rights has faced more and more backlash from athletes, from coaches, from fans, and from legislators around the country. Beyond, though, its exploitative economic features, our unpaid athletes are denied the opportunity to earn money while coaches and administrators are the highest paid public employees in the state. But also, and there's a second part of this bill, today's college sports have led to tragedies like that of Jordan McNair and the sexual abuse that the women suffered at the hands of Dr. Larry Nassar at Michigan State. That's why this bill also establishes, again, like in past years, there was a commission. This year, we've transformed it from a commission to a simple Bill of Rights, a Bill of Rights for student athletes to protect their well-being by requiring schools to adopt policies to prevent and treat injury, protect students' scholarships in the event of injury, temporary leave of absence, or any interest in transferring, to elevate their life skills and academics, to ensure that student athletes are granted the same rights as other students with regard to disciplinary actions and financial aid, and so on. This provision, this Bill of Rights provision, has been law in California for over a decade. So it is not new. This is already applies to thousands of athletes in one of the biggest public state school systems in the country. So I think for too long, state legislators have deferred to the NCAA in make rules regarding the treatment of our college athletes. The NCAA itself has asserted that it has no duty to protect athletes from injuries or guarantee an athlete medical coverage for sports-related injuries, has no legal duty to ensure academic integrity or the quality of an athlete's education, and has not held university athletic departments responsible for failures to ensure safety and well-being. I think it's time for the Maryland General Assembly to stand up to the NCAA and to support our Maryland student athletes, both their ability to earn income from their name, image, and likeness, and protect their health and safety. We go to their games, we tweet our support, and we support them in our words. And so now it's time that we should support them here, where we can truly make a difference through passing this legislation. I ask for a favorable report on House Bill 125. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. Are there any questions of the sponsor? Any questions of the sponsor? I see none. Okay, we're going to move right on to those who have come to testify in favor of your bill. We will start off with, is it Ragamodi Huma, H-U-M-A?
Yes, Ramogi Huma. Thank you.
I got it. I nailed it. Hey.
Did. So good afternoon. My name is Ramogi Huma. I'm the executive director of the NCPA, the National College Players Association. The NCPA is in full support of HB 125, which seeks much needed broad-based college sports reform. It would guarantee college athletes protection similar to the College Athletes Bill of Rights recently introduced in both the US Senate and House of Representatives. NCAA sports is a predatory industry that refuses to enforce rules to prevent sexual abuse, safety measures during COVID-19 pandemic, and as we know, the NCAA does not enforce rules to prevent deaths due to negligent workouts. Jordan McNair paid the ultimate price for the NCAA sports' lack of concern of college athletes' health and safety. The truth is that if Jordan would have received a free meal from a fan because of his athletics reputation, the NCAA would have investigated and punished Jordan. But Jordan died in a negligent workout, and the NCAA still refuses to enforce health and safety standards. The NCPA implores the state of Maryland not to follow the NCAA's lead. Do not ignore this important issue. HB 125 includes mandatory health and safety standards, mandated reporting, and whistleblower protections. This is the path toward protecting college athletes. The state should also ensure Maryland's college athletes have the same freedoms that other students and Americans have to earn NIL compensation. This is not only a matter of fairness for all Maryland college athletes, it's a matter of racial justice. NCAA sports uses amateurism as cover to systematically strip wealth from predominantly Black athletes from lower income households to pay for lavish salaries of predominantly white coaches, athletic directors, commissioners, and NCAA administrators. Black athletes also have the lowest graduation rates. Additionally, there's no credible reason to split this bill into two bills, as some have suggested. NIL is a bipartisan freight train in state legislatures across the nation, largely because the states want to ensure that their athletes and programs aren't left behind, as other states' athletes will have NIL freedoms beginning in July. Health and safety, though more important, is less popular. Separating NIL makes it more likely to die and more likely that another Maryland college athlete will die. These are the stakes: life and death, sexual assault, and racial and economic justice. It's time for Maryland to end the exploitation of its college athletes by adopting HB 125. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Brian Hess.
Chairman McIntosh, Vice Chair Chang, and members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to testify to offer my support of HB 125. My name is Brian Hess. I'm the Executive Director of Sports Fans Coalition. Founded in 2009, SFC is a national grassroots nonprofit devoted to representing fans wherever public policy impacts the games we love. We're best known for leading the campaign to end the Federal Communication Commission's sports blackout rule and have advocated before the Maryland legislature on ticket resale, sports betting consumer protections, and other issues. The NCAA, sports apparel and merchandising companies, and media conglomerates earn billions of dollars in sports-related revenue each year, yet professes to operate in the name of so-called amateurism. While college athletic programs often help students gain a college education, they too often extract economic gains from athletes while denying those young men and women a real chance to complete their degrees or otherwise share in the bounty of the athlete's own blood, sweat, and tears. Personally, when I was an undergraduate student at a public university, I tutored college athletes in the evening. What I witnessed was disgraceful. The hours alone that my students had to dedicate to grueling workouts, frequent practices, extensive travel, and other team activities left them no time for academics. My students struggled to keep up with homework, study for exams, and reach their potential in the classroom. Outside of tutoring, if I saw one of my students walking in the rain across campus, I was forbidden from offering them a ride, as that would be seen as a gift based on their status. In other words, I have seen firsthand the gap between what athletes provide to a university and what that university offers in return. Mine is not an isolated experience. These unreasonable restrictions on student athletes are exactly why this bill is paramount to ensuring a positive student athlete experience for Marylanders. A student athlete should be able to earn compensation from their name and likeness. After all, it is their hard work that has created value for their brand. Why shouldn't they be able to prosper? Students also sacrifice their bodies for their school, many of whom suffering from lifelong conditions. Athletic programs absolutely owe it to the athletes to provide for their health and safety, because without the student sacrifice, there would be no athletic program. Today, college athletes have no organized representation, no lobbyists, no one. Absent an advocate, it falls on the shoulder of the fans to stand up for our athletes against the exploitation of the NCAA. Maryland's college athletes deserve more than the support of sports fans. They deserve their representatives. It is with that in mind that I urge the members of this committee to support HB 125 and take this historic step to protect Maryland college athletes. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Same Kendra, Young Democrats.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Chairwoman, for allowing us to testify today. And thank you, Delegate Learman, for introducing this bill. My name is Samay Kindra. I am an executive member of the Young Democrats of Maryland and chair of the Caucus of Color. I graduated from College Park in May, and I'm now at University of Maryland Law School. I was before this committee last year, also talking about this bill. And I kind of want to start with this highlight. If there's any group of students that face the rates of poverty, that had opportunities stripped away from them the way that this group does, especially when this group is disproportionately a group of color, disproportionately a group of students who this is their first generation students, we would be jumping to try and solve this problem. The underlying narrative that prevents that action taking place is the false narrative that somehow student athletes are paid or compensated through their scholarships. But if we strip it away and look at why that is, we don't think of scholarships in that way for anyone else. For students who receive academic or achievement scholarships, we don't think they're being paid to go to school. We don't think they're being compensated to go to school. We realize that scholarships are a recognition of hard prior work and dedication. It's not compensation. And when you strip that away and realize that really the narrative isn't about student athletes being paid and compensated, it's that they're regular students who don't have the same opportunities, the same rights as other students who are also on scholarships. This bill is not about giving additional rights or paying student athletes. This is about restoring the rights that have been taken away from them. They are a group of students. Doesn't matter that they're athletes. They are a group of students who have been disenfranchised. And it's up to us to make sure that we do what we can to make sure this group of students who are disproportionately of color, disproportionately first generation college students, have all the opportunities available to them that any other students do. We should be supporting them more, not taking away their opportunities and privileges and rights. For that reason, I really urge this committee to think about it in that fashion, that this isn't something about student athletes being paid. This is about a group of students and making sure that they aren't disenfranchised. And I really hope that this committee votes in favor of HB 125. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. We now have with us Martin McNair. And committee, particularly for those of you who are new on our committee this year, a couple of new members, we do want to welcome you, Mr. McNair, and once again, very much offer our condolences to you and your family for the loss of Jordan. So thank you for being here with us again on this bill that Delegate Learman has brought forward. Mr. McNair.
Yep. Thank you, Chairman, and the rest of the committee. As obviously she gave me a grand introduction, and thank you. So I'm Martin McNair. I'm the founder, Jordan McNair's father, and the founder of the Jordan McNair Foundation. My oral testimony in support of House Bill 125. Since 2018, the Jordan McNair Foundation has been aggressive in promoting this mission of awareness, education, and prevention regarding heat-related illnesses and injuries in sports among parents, coaches, student athletes, in addition to improving player safety. We recognize that the need to pass legislation in order to help save the lives of student athletes is more critical than ever. According to the Centers for Disease and Control, heat illnesses have been recognized as a leading cause of death and disability among student athletes. Without prompt treatment, heat illness can lead to organ failure, brain damage, and death. When there's urgent medical attention, 92% of people are treated and released. A cold water tub is the easiest and most cost-effective tool to use to save a life during a heat-related illness or injury. Since its founding, the Jordan McNair Foundation has been reaching the community in various ways. We reached over 88 million via social media and digital marketing and generated more than 83 million media impressions, promoted educational videos and webinars reaching over 5,000 people, educated more than 7,500 student athletes, coaches, and parents to train them on the signs, symptoms, and prevention of heat-related illnesses and injury. We donated more than 250 cold water tubs across the nation to organizations that needed them. While all of this is important, I can't stress enough the greater importance of passing this legislation to keep every student athlete safe. Player safety is an overall mission and therefore aligns with the Jordan McNair Foundation. As a parent who lost a child to a preventable injury, we have met with many other parents who have had to endure the pain that we did. I continue to stress that no parent willingly or knowingly sends their child off to a higher educational institution for them to die. We send our children to a higher level educational institution to develop them into future thought leaders and professionals and to help prepare them for life. I strongly urge you to pass House Bill 125 in order to help save the lives of student athletes at all levels of competition. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you for once again being with us.
Thank you.
Dan Alpert.
Hi, and thank you. My name is Dan Alpert, and I'm the student body president at the University of Maryland, College Park. I'd like to start by thanking Chair McIntosh and all the members of the Appropriations Committee for the opportunity to share our thoughts on this vital bill. Thank you also to Delegate Learman for reintroducing this legislation, which will level the playing field for student athletes. During the summer between my freshman and sophomore year, College Park suffered a tragedy in the loss of Jordan McNair. Jordan is one of more than 30 college football players who have died during an NCAA-sanctioned workout since 2000. Jordan McNair's preventable death laid bare the vulnerabilities that our student athletes face and the unfair practices that are unique to them. This bill protects the health, safety, and future of student athletes in 3 key ways. First, by creating stronger injury protocols. Second, by protecting scholarships if there's a break in play. And third, by ensuring that student athletes have all the necessary resources to succeed in their academic and professional lives. This bill also follows the lead of more than 20 other states by allowing student athletes to earn an income off the use of their name, image, and likeness. This ensures that student athletes are receiving reasonable and fair benefits while they are representing the university. As a student who has previously worked for our athletics department, I know that many of our student athletes are not comfortable speaking out on athletic-related issues. In fact, when we reached out to student athletes, many were not comfortable on testifying on this bill, proving the importance of the anti-retaliation clause. We need our student athletes to know that their words and actions will not be held against them by the athletics department. It is for these reasons that we, the Student Government Association at the University of Maryland, urge a favorable report on the Jordan McNair Safe and Fair Play Act. Thank you.
Thank you. Emmett Gill.
Madam Chair and committee, thank you so much for allowing me to speak with you today. I bring you greetings and prayers for good health from athletes and advocates for social justice in sports. Athletes and advocates proudly supports the Jordan McNair Safe and Fair Play Act, HB 125. There are several outstanding components of HB 125. However, athletes and advocates would like to focus on one area in particular: the proposed provision of a 5-year guaranteed athletic scholarship. Athletes and advocates believes that this provision is the foundation for college athletes' rights in the state of Maryland. From 2004 to 2006, I served as a learning specialist for the University of Maryland football team. From my experience, I understand the challenges associated with trying to compete in the NCAA sports and obtain a functional and constructive college degree. There are young men and young women who dedicate over 40 hours per week to their sport. After each day, and oftentimes exhausted and sometimes injured, they try and academically compete. As a learning specialist, I can distinctly recall working with young men who didn't have the best secondary education, but they were trying their best to compete with peers with more resources. I truly believe that if they had more time, that they could compete in the classroom. That is why providing an extra year of matriculation will help college athletes, in particular Black males like Jordan McNair, not just academically compete, but also help them further an opportunity towards a constructive college degree. It will allow them to refine their non-sports gifts, which is the true reason they attend college. Athletes and advocates would like to make one additional point. Any provision in HB 125 that refers to physical health should also refer to mental health. Mental health coverage for college athletes up to 2 years after graduation should be mandated. The rigor of college athletics and academics, not to mention the tribulations caused by COVID-19 and the social unrest, are having an incredibly negative impact on our college athletes. College athletes would benefit from mandated mental health services 2 years after graduation. In closing, athletes and advocates fully supports HB 125. As we reflect on the avoidable and tragic death of Jordan McNair, it is important that we realize the impact that a guaranteed scholarship could have had on his physical and mental well-being. If Jordan McNair knew that he could have walked off the field because of his deteriorating physical condition and still maintained his scholarship until he graduated, it's plausible that he would be with us today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, this concludes the folks who have signed up in favor of House Bill 125. Are there any questions of any of those who joined us today? Do members have any questions? We've heard this bill, and so I think we're very familiar with the bill, its intent. So I see no questions. Thank you very much.
Madam Chair.
Oh, yes.
Madam
Wait a minute. Put your blue hand up.
Oh, blue hand.
Down in the, there's a little thing. We're going to have to teach you all how to do this rather than shout out.
My blue hand is up, Madam Chair.
Oh, good. Why is it I don't see it? There you go.
My hand is yellow.
Yellow, yellow.
Oh, yeah. Well, they'll get Krim.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And just a quick statement to Mr. McNair. And I have a son who played college athletics, and I just can't imagine getting a phone call that you got on that day when Jordan passed. So thank you for being here. That many people think about Jordan a lot and your family. I want to ask a question of the sponsor in the panel, or just the panel. So do you think this is a recruiting tool? The fact that these other states allow athletes to sell
products with their name on it, or however they choose to make money. Do you think that's a recruiting tool for them in Maryland, or just losing athletes to come to our schools here?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think, yes, it's a recruiting. There are many reasons that, passing legislation like this is important, but certainly, if you're a parent and you're talking to your child about where they're going to go to school, seeing some of the rights that are in the Bill of Rights would be good. And if you're a student, knowing that this is a school where they are supportive of you being able to use your name, image, and likeness, and to earn income, that they want you to have those rights, of course, it demonstrates the school's commitment to the student athletes' health and well-being and financial independence. So absolutely could be considered a recruiting tool.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And Delegate Grice, did you have a question?
I did, but Delegate Krim actually asked that question. But I will say, Sameh, I think that the Young Republicans would agree with just about all your testimony that you had there on this very bipartisan bill. And, hopefully we'll get this thing passed this year. And, and I am concerned as well with Delegate Krim that it will make our colleges and our universities at a competitive disadvantage when it comes to recruiting. So along with all the other reasons why we should pass this bill. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Delegate Acevera.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to Mr. McNair and all of the panelists that testified in support of this bill. I really want to say that I agree with Mr. Emmett Gill, particularly around scholarship and guaranteeing of scholarship to student athletes and the positive impact that would have, but particularly on athletes of color. To the bill sponsor, Delegate Lehrman, welcome back to Probes. So correct me if I'm wrong, but Maryland is one of 40 states where the highest paid public employee is a college football coach. Isn't that so?
That is correct.
Okay. We're one of 40 states. All right. And what about the athletes who, obviously are on the field? This is a physical toll to their body, right? And it's not generating any, academic promise, it seems. What are they earning? Just so I'm clear.
They are not earning any income above a scholarship. They're playing for free in addition, besides their scholarship. So no income. And they don't have the same rights as their fellow students, right? Who can earn income in different ways. So they're actually have fewer rights than their fellow students.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. We now need to move to Robert Page from the University System of Maryland. You have 2 minutes to explain to us why we shouldn't pass this bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name's Bob Page. I'm the Associate Vice Chancellor and staff to the Board of Regents Intercollegiate Athletics Work Group, which is chaired by Regent Gossett. You have the university system's written testimony and that of UMBC's athletic director, Brian Berrio, who couldn't navigate or attend this afternoon. But I'll simply make a couple of high-level points. First, I'd like to express my condolences to Mr. McNair. Like everybody else, I can't even imagine the pain that you and your wife must have gone through in all this. I'd also like to thank Delegate Lehrman for her willingness and openness to working with our university's athletic departments to address the concerns in the bill that was introduced last session. The proposed House Bill 125 reflects a set of values and goals that generally all of our university system institutions share and agree with. The past couple of years, USM institutions have been diligently adopting and implementing recommendations the Walters Report, which was commissioned after the tragic death of Jordan. At the same time, the Board of Regents commissioned a study on governance and oversight by the Association of Governing Boards. And they've been persistent in implementing the recommendations of that study as well, which included comments on improving oversight of intercollegiate athletics. And just last November, the full board adopted a resolution to establish a standing committee of the Board of Regents to conduct oversight over intercollegiate athletics, but with an expanded focus from the work group that focuses more on student athlete health and welfare matters, many of which are the focus of House Bill 125. Despite the efforts of Delegate Learman and the institutions she's been working with, the university system still has a couple of concerns about House Bill 125. And those concerns are why we would ask for an unfavorable report on the current bill as a result. By board policy and longstanding budget expectations, intercollegiate athletics at system institutions are expected to operate on a self-support basis. This is important to us so that we ensure that athletics doesn't drive tuition increases. The university system includes 8 institutions that have intercollegiate athletic programs, 5 in the Division I, and 3 that are either in Division II and III. The financial resources available to these athletic programs and the rules on scholarship and other student athlete support differ widely across our university institutions. We also have concerns with specifically the mandated scholarship and student athlete health and welfare provisions in the bill, to the extent that they impose additional costs on our intercollegiate athletic programs. Many of our programs struggle mightily to achieve a self-supporting basis. And so any additional costs that are imposed on them end up driving increases in student activity or athletic fees that are used to fund athletics. Similarly, dealing with the name, likeness, and image provisions, we continue to have concerns about the patchwork of state legislative initiatives that have been adopted across the country, interacting with prospective actions taken either by Congress or the NCAA, and the potential for conflicts and issues associated with eligibility that would result. We would like to continue to work with Delegate Learman on refining a bill that would satisfy our jointly held values in a fashion that doesn't create conflicts between legislative bodies and the NCAA, and are affordable within the current context for our university system institutions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I'm going to actually close on that. I think I would like to encourage you to work with the sponsor of the bill and Delegate Chairman Barnes on the committee. If you could, the 3 of you, sit down soon to work on any differences on this bill. I think it's an important bill, and we've been very patient, and we appreciate your comments, but please take us up on the offer to work with Delegate Chairman Barnes and Delegate Learman. So with that, I'm going to thank everybody for being with us today. Mr. McNair, always thank you. And we'll conclude the bill hearing at this time. Thank you. Committee, thank you, Delegate. Before we move to the last bill of the day, I am called to a meeting with the speaker, and so I want to, before I leave you, give the opportunity for the 2 members who are in the waiting room and having technical difficulties getting in. I moved that vote early today very quickly. I'd like to give them an opportunity to vote. So at this time, I'd like to state that we had a favorable on House Bill 1, the historically Black colleges and universities. And I'd like at this time to ask our two delegates to state their vote on that bill for the record. Delegate Chang?
Yes.
Delegate Lewis?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And I'm very, very sorry about that this afternoon. In the future, if people are stuck in the waiting room and I'm moving too fast, they'll try to get a hold of me, okay? I apologize that I have to leave for another meeting, but Delegate, the Vice Chair will take over for the last bill. And Delegate Krim, I'm sorry to miss this bill, but I'm sure it's a good one. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, everyone. We will now hear House Bill 73, Delegate Krim, State and Local Government and Private Employees Teleworking. Delegate Krim, please proceed when you're ready.
Okay, just give me a second to get my picture back up. Good afternoon, colleagues. Yeah, sorry the chair had to leave, but I think we all would want to leave if we had an opportunity. It is 3 hours into this hearing, so but I'm here to present to you House Bill 73 on teleworking. So when Governor Hogan issued the stay-at-home executive order in March 2020, there were many challenges associated with that order. But two positive results were a significant reduction in traffic congestion and much better air quality as a result of less greenhouse gas emissions. Telework is the main reason for these two positive results. Soon after the stay-at-home order was imposed, Chairman Corman and myself discussed the direction of our subcommittee, Transportation and the Environment. We decided that expansion of telework was worth investigating, and the work began. Our subcommittee had a briefing in August 2020, at which time we gathered information from stakeholders and experts in traffic management about teleworking. The Maryland Institute of Transportation at the University of Maryland has data for all highways across the state. Their data shows that if there is a 5% to 15% reduction in traffic during peak travel times, then we may have free flow traffic. Since I-270 is heavily traveled, that percentage is closer to 15%, and that is an example. So I hear a lot from my colleagues in Charles County, et cetera, about the terrible traffic they have in that section of the state. So I think the 15% would apply there. The chart Maryland traffic volume comparison 2019 versus 2020 attached to this testimony shows the reduction was as high as 50% in traffic after the issuance of the stay-at-home order by the governor. Common sense efforts to expand telework may generate significant reductions in greenhouse gas emissions. Secretary Ben Grummel said, "There is no denying the decrease in greenhouse gas emissions was a direct effect of people staying at home and traveling less. So teleworking is the wave of the future." HB 73 requires state and local government to develop and implement a teleworking policy and identify employees eligible for teleworking. While 48% of federal employees in the Washington Metro telework, only 48% of federal employees in the Washington area telework, but only 14% of state and local government employees do. And that's according to the National Capital Region Transportation Planning Board. The private sector is also encouraged in this bill to participate in future tax credits or grant opportunities for small businesses to develop these policies may be available. Traffic reduction and better air quality are two proven positive results of expanding telework policies. Also are healthcare benefits for people who are positively impacted by better air quality, like children with asthma. While not every job is conducive to telework, many jobs in state government are, as we have seen during the pandemic. Teleworking may be an incentive for employees to work for state government, and the state may see a reduction in operations cost for leasing buildings, et cetera, because we don't need all that office space. You're going to see testimony in your packet, as well as people testifying. I think MML and MACO have some issues with the bill because they don't have enough flexibility for management to implement these policies. But I think we can overcome their concerns. So if you hear that in their testimony, I think we can work that out. However, there is a opposition letter from the judiciary. The judiciary opposes this bill. So I want to tell you straight off, I'm not sure whether we can work things out with them, but of course I am always open to working things out. So I encourage you to support House Bill 73. You're going to hear from the State Employees Union. They have many people here. Well, they have many people who support the bill, and they have some people here who will testify. So thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I pass this on to the people who want to testify.
Thank you very much, Delegate Krim, for presenting House Bill 73. Are there any questions from members of the Appropriations Committee to Delegate Krim regarding House Bill 73? The gentleman from Montgomery County is recognized, Delegate Mark Corman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you to my vice chair for bringing forward this bill. I just want to make sure that I understand the basis of the bill. You're not suggesting that we like lockdowns because of global health pandemics, right? And you're not suggesting that people should never commute to work.
Exactly. Yes. No. I envision jobs becoming like a hybrid approach, like we're doing in schools, or maybe we will do in schools, where you go in a couple days a week, telework the rest of the week. I think people have to go in and see their managers on occasion, and not everybody can work 5 days a week teleworking. And I think people want to go into their jobs also, maybe not every day. I mean, and you're going to hear from state employees today who really have enjoyed, so to speak, teleworking. And it is a very positive policy to have in place for recruitment. But yes, Chair Corman, you're absolutely right. We're not advocating that. But I think that if we could have some kind of integrated system where we could have 5 to 15% reduction in traffic congestion every day. Just think about that. That's not very much. But if we could achieve that, and of course we have achieved that during the pandemic times, but if we could achieve that post-pandemic, we would have free flow traffic. So who doesn't want that? Plus better air quality. I mean, that alone is worth the effort. So thank you for the question.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just say, as a part-time state employee, I commuted yesterday on the Beltway and Route 50 to Annapolis. Today I commuted upstairs and I'm wearing pajama pants that you guys can't see. So there's definitely a groundwork for a hybrid approach. And then just, I know we'll hear from the judiciary and our friends in county and municipal government, but obviously they're doing quite a bit of telework now, whatever their views are on this bill. Does that sound accurate?
That is correct. A lot of state employees, I mean, we have a stay-at-home order from the governor, and anybody who can telework is supposed to be teleworking now. So I think teleworking has worked a lot better than people had envisioned. because I think there were these policies that were out there, but none of them were statutory, of course. And I think state employees were trying to push for more teleworking, but there was resistance because I don't think the managers were sure how the production would be, but it's turned out that production has increased with state employees. So during the pandemic and teleworking. So I think it's an excellent wave of the future, as Secretary Grumbles has said.
Great. Thank you, Delegate Krim. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
The gentleman from Prince George's County is recognized, Delegate Jazz Lewis.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks for bringing this bill, Delegate Krim. So am I correct in understanding that whether it's the legislature, the judiciary, the executive branch, they each already have some base level of telework policies, and your bill would just be encouraging them to maximize the use of telework? You're muted right now.
Okay, sorry. So DBM does have policy, but it's not statutory. So there is nothing that requires the different agencies to have a policy and to maximize teleworking. So what this would do is, of course, maximize teleworking and to let us know what employees are eligible for teleworking, and it would be statutory. So the employees could count on this.
You anticipate like operational efficiencies by folks doing this?
Absolutely, and also a reduction in cost, I think, for the state. Because right now we do have a lot of state office buildings. We may not need all those buildings in the future. So operations costs, leasing costs, etc. All a good possibility.
Yeah, it seems to me, particularly just coming back from the, from the Judiciary Committee and happy to be over here in Appropriations for these Zoom rooms and Microsoft Teams for everything you can think of. We're still able to pursue the work of the people. It just makes sense for us to maximize as much as possible. Thank you.
Thank you.
The gentleman from Howard County is recognized, Delegate Novotny.
Delegate Krim, thank you so much for bringing this important topic up. I will disagree on the surface that telework is the wave of the future. I've been doing it for many years in my job, so maybe we're just bringing it up to the current status, but I do encourage this bill. So you just stated that there might be a reduction in cost for the state for lease space and the like. So what would be the point of doing some type of tax credit for the private industries that take advantage of this? What problem is that solving?
Well, if the money is available for that, I think that some small businesses may need some incentive to maybe purchase equipment or to implement a policy, maybe do some training for their staff. I've taken some webinars since investigating this topic, and I think people do need to learn how to telework. Not everybody can just jump in front of a computer and start working. I think people have to learn how to structure their day and also do this kind of thing, this Zoom meetings online. And to be frankly honest, I've learned that not everybody is a good teleworker. So, but I think that people may think they're not, and their managers may think they are not, but actually they could be with training. So that's what this a grant or a tax incentive would be for.
Thank you very much, ma'am. I agree. I think all the students had a hard time transitioning too, but same point. Thank you.
The gentlewoman from Prince George's County is recognized, Delegate Geraldine Valentina Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair, and thank you, Delegate Krim, for bringing this bill forward. I agree with Delegate Corman. It's a good thing we all don't have to stand up throughout most of the hearings. You serve with me on the Joint Committee for Ending Homelessness, and so you're very much aware, even though, as you mentioned, that telework, particularly in this bill, might have a future impact on space and whether or not buildings and office space continue to be needed at the volume that we have them. And so I guess we've got bills in, you and I as a joint committee on ending homelessness, on the future of adaptive reuse of commercial buildings and starting to look at it since they're already built and already there for affordable housing or transitional housing. So the only thing I asked you consider, and I didn't get to ask you ahead of time, but I saw that you're getting a report on the number of people participating in telework. If it could just also include the anticipation that they have for the need to vacate space and or have space available given a telework policy, so that we can keep a close eye on what may or may not be available for adaptive reuse.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent point, Delegate, because who knows if we could adapt a large building for high school use, and reduce cost that way. There are all kinds of possibilities out there, and I think they're being considered across the country because telework is now becoming very popular. And we are going to have these buildings that are already built, and it would be nice to have something positive to put in those facilities.
So thank you, and thank you for allowing me to foreshadow the bill we'll be bringing forward later. Thank you.
Thank you.
The gentleman representing the Eastern Shore is recognized, Delegate Jeff Grice.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. We know that MML and MACO are opposed to this, but obviously they're very large stakeholders, in this bill. Have they had any meaningful input, or have they had any part of drafting this bill at all?
No, but I can tell you that from my point of view, I thought everybody at this point, all levels of government, would have had a telework policy in place, because of the situation we are in. Of course, in Frederick County, we're teleworking, the city and the county government are teleworking now. So, but I've had a discussion about the bill with my county executive, and she says the main concern is about having some flexibility. And I think we can work those things out with MML and MACO. And, yesterday I did a broadband bill in Economic Matters, and there was much interest in expanding broadband to our rural areas. I've worked on that on a task force, but this would be a statewide initiative for broadband. But part of that is putting in place opportunities for people to telework. So you have some of the areas that are economically disadvantaged, have chronic high unemployment across the state, mostly in the western sections, and I think maybe some areas in your area, Delegate Grice. So if we could do that, if we could have those two match up, broadband and a good telework policy for all kinds of businesses. I mean, I've heard and I've read that telework is a game changer for states because they can bring a lot of companies into an area that has chronic high employment, but if they utilize telework, they can offer jobs to people in those areas. So, they sort of go hand in hand, the broadband. I didn't do the broadband until I had a telework bill, but I thought if we're going to put this in effect statewide, we really should have good broadband infrastructure. So I brought the broadband bill. So, okay.
The gentleman from Western Maryland is recognized, Delegate Wendell Beitzel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can you hear me?
We can.
Yes. Okay, Delegate Krim, I have a few concerns about the bill, and maybe you could help me out here a little bit. During this pandemic, obviously, I agree that there are many functions that we can do, what we're doing right now. I'm sitting here looking at you from my desk across the computer. and it's 200 miles from here out to where I live. And so now I don't have to come as many meetings. In fact, didn't even come to one meeting. So we saved travel expense and overnight expense and all those things. But during this pandemic, there has been tremendous problems and government agencies. Whoops, I'm sorry about that. We are here, our agencies and the functions of government to serve people, provide services, and address the concerns of all the agencies of the government that we're required to do. And I'm looking back, one of the things that has occurred during this shutdown and everything is the number of people have lost their jobs. And you know, and I'm sure you've experienced, and one of the biggest concerns, things that I got the most complaints about was unemployment. And I even right today, they have been dealing with that. And I've tried to call people myself into the unemployment office just to see if what they were saying was true. And I have one constituent said they called 700 times in one day to try to get through the beacon system, and they want to talk to a person. And I've tried to call and they say, well, during the COVID, we're required to work at home. We're working from home. We can't address this. And even today I called on a call and it said 3 or 4 times it just rang and rang and rang and no one would answer the phone. Not unemployment concern. But how do you address when someone's sitting in their home supposed to be there for 8 hours a day or 7 hours and an hour break or whatever? How do you address the fact that they aren't doing the job, and how do you control that?
Well, I think that goes back to management, training. And we not only have to train the workers, we have to train the managers on making sure that the employees do their job. We are going to have some state employees testify today, and they will tell you that they're getting their work done. Now, I think the unemployment issue is separate from everything because I think that for some reason, we didn't have the systems in place to respond to all of the concerns and the claims for unemployment. I agree with you on that. But I'm not sure that has anything to do with telework, because I think the rest of the state, if you can bring me another example of the rest of the state not doing because of bad teleworkers, then I would like to hear that. And I tell you, the first conversation I had about telework was with Secretary Brinkley. So we were talking about budget. I mean, you know, he comes from Frederick County, and, you know, we were just talking on the phone, and he said, you know, this is going to be something post-pandemic that we're going to want to do. And he was talking about the savings that could come to the state because of less use of leasing facilities and other operation cost. I mean, you know, it was just so apparent to me that there were so many positive things related to telework that it certainly was worth my time investigating it.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just follow up a minute. Yeah, obviously there are advantages in where it can take place. I agree, but I'm concerned about, you know, if you're an agency and I'm the manager or the administrator of an agency or something, and we have an office complex and the people are there doing their job and you can watch over it. When somebody's in their home, there's no way that anybody's going to be able to go into their home, and there's no way you would expect a manager to go into someone's home to check up on them to see if they're doing their job. So how do you something in the bill, you can put some assurances in there that there's some way to supervise your employees to make sure they're doing what they're supposed to do.
Okay, there's a way for a manager to give an employee a work assignment and have them completed within a certain amount of time. And then that's what they would have to do. If your employee is not meeting their goals as an employee, then you need to bring them into the office. They may be one of those people that are not a good teleworker. Could be, but that's where managers come in.
And if I may, Mr. Chair, just one more follow-up. Now the bill, I'm going to be honest, I haven't read it, so I haven't dug into the bill. But is this only dealing with state employees, or are you mandating things on county employees? Or are you mandating in the bill anything on private employers?
So what we have here is it's about state, county, and local employees who work for the government. I said that we were going to try to work something out with the MML and MACO, because I think they want some flexibility, and I think we can work that out. The judiciary, I'm not sure I can work things out with them. So, but we'll try. The private employees is in the non-codified section of the bill, the private sector. So we will see if we have any grant funding or tax credits we can offer to them in order to put these policies in place.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Delegate Beitzel. The other gentleman from Western Maryland is recognized, Delegate Mike McKay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So while I support the concept of telework, but I wonder, Delegate, is this a little bit too soon? And that maybe there needs to turn this into a task force to actually look at the balls and strikes of telework, to look at different agencies and how they have performed and or have not performed. And while you had asked about other agencies or other issues, I don't want to throw anybody under the bus, but MVA, Social Services, State Highway Administration, matter of fact, dealing with all through DLS, they've done a very, very good job of helping us, for us to try to figure out what to do. But whether it be the printers, we don't have our budget books yet. There's just a variety of things that need to be worked out that maybe this bill is just maybe a year too soon, that needs to be maybe a task force. Had you considered that? And then maybe just doing it from a state level before we tell the locals they need to come up, we can then prove it out. So is that some of the consideration that may or may be considered in the future for that? Thank you.
Well, I think the task force is what has happened in the past, not quite a year, probably since last March when we had to stay home. I think we know that teleworking has worked. I've talked to different levels of government, and I think everybody is surprised by how well it did work. So I think there are those concerns that Delegate Beitzel and you are voicing a little bit about, and I think that's always been there about, well, we maybe that job could be teleworked, but we really don't trust the employee. Well, it's turned out that everybody's done their job. So I appreciate your comment. It's not that I wouldn't consider it, but I think we know now that telework can work. And we're just asking for the state agencies to develop policies and to identify who can be teleworkers and to maximize that. That's what we're asking for.
If I may, Mr. Chair.
We lost you, Mike.
Delegate McKay. We'll get back to Delegate McKay for his follow-up question. Delegate, the gentlelady from Southern Maryland is recognized. Delegate Proctor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to make a couple of comments about folks maybe not working at home. If we look at the things that big companies like Amazon and Apple and a lot of others, I mean, they want people to have flexibility. They don't want them sitting at desks. They want them to be comfortable. I think there are changes. The young workers now, I mean, they demand certain conditions. They demand having a certain amount of time to walk outside in the park. And they don't want people micromanaging them in many cases. And you're going to lose those people. And if they are very good people, you're going to do what you need to do to keep them. And like I said, the workplaces of some of these Twitter, Amazon, Apple, all these folks, you see workplaces changing. So telemarketing, and I think the same person who doesn't do well telemarketing at home may spend his day at the office doing personal stuff on his computer. So that's my comment.
Thank you, Delegate.
The gentleman from Baltimore County is recognized, Delegate Mangione.
Thanks, Mr. Vice Chair. And I agree with the Delegate Proctor's comments, and I agree with Delegate Beitzel as well. It's kind of, I think we all agree if we can prove, and thank you, Delegate Krim, if there's, well, I guess I don't want to be too repetitive. Is there a way we could add like a metrics to the bill, or think about it where, you know, if it's proven, then absolutely let's keep doing the telework. I mean, I agree with you. I mean, I'm sure some people, I have friends in the mortgage industry, and he's kind of an upper management guy, and he said his company is just booming. Obviously, it was a good time, but he said they've been working from home. He doesn't see a reason to really go back to a lot of the offices. And obviously, they measure it in the fact that they made a hell of a lot of money this year. So if we can have metrics that are proving it, I think that would really solidify the bill and reason to enhance it in the future. But to Delegate Beitzel and Delegate McKay, if we see a drop off due to our metrics, then we have to, obviously. So I'm wondering if just something to think about, if that could be something maybe added to the bill, or is it in the bill? Because I've only seen just the
I think more data is better than less data. So
yeah.
I think we could probably get some of that, those metrics from the different agencies. So
yeah, or
the union may have those metrics because they have a lot of people who support the teleworking, and I think it's a good recruitment tool for state employees too. There's many reasons for us to continue this, but I need to go back to the two basic reasons: is to reduce traffic congestion and to have better air quality. Those are two gifts to our citizens in the state of Maryland. If we can sustain less traffic congestion and better air quality by promoting telework.
Yeah, and that is obviously positive. I just have the same concerns with Delegate Beitzel if it's not being proven to work. But I don't want to be repetitive. And like I said, if that's something that can be somehow implemented, it'd be great.
Yeah. Okay, so let's go back to some federal statistics. 48% of our federal employees are teleworking at some point during the week. So if that wasn't working for the feds, they would have those employees into work. So, but they've had that for many years, and it is working for them. And Delegate Corman and I talked to the Office of Personnel Management about the feds expanding telework and having more people telework to get, of course, more cars off the road.
I appreciate it. I may have missed that part earlier. Thank you for telling me. And thank you. Yeah.
The gentleman from Montgomery County is recognized, Delegate Mark Corman.
Appreciate the second bite at the apple, Mr. Chairman, and I appreciate Delegate McKay's commitment to his skepticism of this bill by sabotaging his own broadband mid-questioning. I just want to clarify, you're not suggesting we legislate the current situation of a public health emergency where we can't deliver all the budget books to all the offices because they don't want people physically in the buildings.
No, that's not the purpose here.
Right. And so you're not legislating that because the print shop is closed now and our print shop employees can't physically be in the office, that they never go back and we physically never have a print shop again. That's not the suggestion.
Yeah, I think next session we'll be back to doing many of the things we did pre-pandemic.
But if it's outside the legislative session and a Department of Legislative Services staffer is, working on research for a joint committee, they don't necessarily have to go physically in the office to do that. There should be a policy that allows them to do that remotely.
Exactly. And I think we can achieve that.
I mean, I just think some of my colleagues are understandably getting caught up in the current inconveniences we all have from being stuck in our homes. And I don't think that's the purpose of the bill. I
Yeah,
think
that's not the purpose of the bill. And, you know, when the testimony comes forward, I think you're going to hear that. So, so thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to my colleagues for your indulgence.
Thank you, Delegate Corman. And just to follow up on a few other hands that were seen in the screen, the other gentleman from Montgomery County, Delegate Kirill Resnick. Just a question. Great, thank you very much. And the gentlelady from Southern Maryland also has a raised hand. Do you have another question, ma'am? If you could unmute.
You're muted, Susie.
If you could unmute, Delegate Proctor.
No, I don't have another question. As my hand up.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. And the gentleman from Western Maryland did rejoin us back. Delegate McKay, good to see you back again. Okay, that is the end of the questions for the sponsor. Thank you very much, Delegate Krim, and to all the members of the Appropriations Committee for an in-depth discussion on a very timely issue that's going on right now. We have several public testimonies this afternoon. First, we have in favor with amendments, Ms. Denise Gilmore with AFSCME Maryland. Ms. Gilmore, whenever you're ready, and you have 2 minutes.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. My name is Denise Gilmore, and I'm a field director with AFSCME Council 3. Across Maryland, we represent 30,000 state and higher education employees. I wanted to give one quick clarification to a point that Delegate Beitzel mentioned about the UI system. You know, we would love to work with you on this. Our members in the Department of Labor also are concerned about how customer calls are being handled right now. We actually don't represent those members. The Department of Labor outsource those jobs to Accenture, which is a company in Indiana. So we'd love to work with you on getting more resources to the Department of Labor. But we thank Delegate Krim for introducing this important legislation to our members. The issue of telework was amplified last year, as we've talked about. HB 73 makes important improvements to the state's existing telework law. We haven't discussed it much yet, but it also places important guidelines on cybersecurity. But for our members who were mostly denied the opportunity to telework prior to the pandemic, we'd like to see some additional steps taken to ensure that our members can continue to consistently have access to teleworking once the pandemic is over. AFSCME is proposing 6 amendments to HB 73. We include more details on each of these amendments in our written testimony. Our amendments provide clarity to ensure that higher education employees are covered under this bill. They set that telework policies be negotiated. They guarantee that teleworkers are treated the same as non-teleworkers and that telework agreements can only be terminated for cause. And they set a minimum threshold for what telework policies must include. Finally, they require the state to provide information annually on cost savings incurred through the telework program and requires the state to report on who is actually participating in the telework program, in addition to the number of employees who are eligible. There are so many benefits to increasing the number of Marylanders who have access to teleworking in the future. We look forward to continuing to work with Delegate Krim in this committee to pass a fair and equitable telework program here in Maryland. We have 2 members signed up to testify, Ginger Noble and Cherish Vick, who will share their experiences with teleworking. We urge a favorable recommendation on HB 73 with amendments. Thank you very much.
Mark, you're muted. You're muted. Chairman, you're
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Delegate Krim. Thank you very much, Ms. Gilmore, for your testimony. What we'll do is we'll hear from the other 2 witnesses who are in favor with amendments, and then we'll take questions from members of the committee. Ms. Gilmore also has written testimony that's provided. Next, we'll have Cherish Vick with AFSCME Local 112. Cherish Vick, whenever you're ready.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. My name is Cherish Vick, and I'm a member of AFSCME Local 112, and I work for the Department of Human Services. For years, my coworkers and I have been asking to telework. We were always told that we could not. I live in Charles County, but I commute to Prince George's County, where I was spending a lot of unproductive time in traffic on Route 5, polluting the environment. I'm grateful that this changed during the pandemic. DHS supplied me with a laptop, tablet, and a phone to work remotely. I can still visit my clients in person, provide referrals for services, and complete documentation from home. Also, it should be noted that DHS during this pandemic has provided SNAP benefits from home to 1 million customers. I'm doing the exact same job as I've done for the past 12 years, just with a less stressful commute and from the comforts of my home. There's real concern that only upper-level staff and managers will be able to continue to telework after this pandemic. I would like to see the state report annually on the demographics of who is actually participating in the telework program. We want to make sure that the option to telework a few days a week is extended fairly. It's better for our environment and our roads if all state employees who have job duties that can be done remotely get the option to telework occasionally. Much has been documented about the state staffing crisis. The ability to telework is a small incentive that can help recruit and retain workers. I hope that telework is here to stay. Please provide a favorable report on HB 73 with these amendments. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Ms. Vick, for your testimony. Next, we'll hear from Ginger Noble, AFSCME Local 354. Ms. Noble, whenever you're ready.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Vice Chair and members of the committee. My name is Ginger Noble, and I am a member of Local 354, and I work for Maryland Department of Agriculture. Welcome to my teleworking office. Teleworking makes a big difference with the ability to be productive and still help my farmers. There were a few hiccups, a definite learning curve for everyone, and a huge fear of losing personal connection. But many of my operators have commented that they actually enjoyed the efficiency of not having to take the time to stop milking, get off their tractors, come into the office, and personally appear in front of me in order to report for various programs. In 2019, we started through the process of surgeries, chemotherapy, radiation, and other treatments for my mother's breast cancer, with more surgery and treatments in the near future. Instead of calling off work for a full day every time she had treatment or surgery or doctor's appointment, I have been able to complete the same day's work level while working around my mother's appointments because I was allowed to flex during telework. I wouldn't have been able to do that if I was still in the office. I can let my mother rest while I work without needing to take time off. And should I need to go to PA to assist either of my senior parents with medical needs, I can pop my laptop and go to PA. I was so stressed trying to figure out how I was going to be able to work and take care of my parents, but teleworking was a blessing for me. And unfortunately, it came out of bad circumstances, but it was a blessing for me. Telework allows workers to be more productive because it gives us the ability to flex if we are given permission, if we meet certain criteria, and it reduces the need for employees to call out. I was never offered the option to telework before the pandemic. With mom's cancer, I had even suggested it. I work in a multi-agency office alongside federal employees, and telework was never offered to myself or my coworkers until the pandemic hit. I came back to my office on that Thursday from being out on farms all day to an email and a piece of paper that deemed me telework eligible for the first time in almost 20 years. Essentially, I'm a state employee on a state-owned computer, but I use a federal network and federal software and federal programs. So USDA had set us up a long time ago, like a decade ago, to have more mobile capabilities.
If you could summarize.
Yes. So during state emergencies, we're still working. Those of us that telework, we don't have the liberal leave and the state closure, so we are not losing the days from that. My only 2 days off during COVID was when Antietam cable went down. It wasn't because of lack of work. So we definitely need a stronger telework law in order to ensure consistency. So please support and be in favor of HB 73. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Noble, for your testimony. Are there any questions from members of the Appropriations Committee for this panel witnesses? Seeing none, thank you very much. We'll move on now to the witnesses who are providing unfavorable testimonies. There's both written and oral. First, we have Mr. Justin Fiore with the Maryland Municipal League. Mr. Fiore, whenever you're ready, please proceed.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and committee members. My name is Justin Fiore, and I'm a Government Relations Manager with the Maryland Municipal League. Thank you for the opportunity today to testify in opposition to this bill. You have my written testimony, so I'll keep my comments to what's been said today. And maybe we can work to resolve our concerns with the flexibility, but I think we're already headed there of our own volition, right? Like's been said in this hearing, we all have experience with this, and I think the management fears of the past have largely been quelled. Just about every person I talk to in and out of government say that they won't be returning to the old and normal. Personally, our organization's allowing me to testify here today from home, and I'm very thankful for that. It is the way of the future. But we also think that it's rare the General Assembly would name local governments specifically in an HR bill. And so we're just kind of surprised by the local mandate here as well. In conclusion, I'll just say that I look forward to our first Zoom meeting on working it out.
Thank you very much, Mr. Fiore. And next we have Mr. Drew Jabin. I'm sorry, Mrs. Drew Jabin, sorry.
It's okay, happens all the time. Thank you for the last time today. Drew Jabin on behalf of the Maryland Association of Counties here in opposition to House Bill 73. Due to the pandemic, counties have already implemented some form of telework at their discretion. We're meeting the spirit of the bill. It's very clear that currently as written, this is a broad, undefined mandate with absolutely nothing indicating any funding to local jurisdictions with all of the costs associated with logistics, cybersecurity, telecommunications, equipment, policy and procedures, or any other requirement that surrounds telework from an employer's perspective of implementing this new state policy of maximizing employees teleworking. There's also no consideration if an individual in a given position has performance problems or even the appropriate home environment for teleworking. And I'll second Justin's comments that from what I've heard today, it does seem as though the committee is willing to work with us on language to provide the proper flexibility, and we certainly appreciate that. To be clear, our opposition is not about counties disliking the idea of employees teleworking, but as written, this bill does overstep the boundaries of local autonomy and make a request an unfavorable vote. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Jabin, for your testimony. The gentleman from Montgomery County is recognized, Delegate Resnick.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So to either MML or MACO, just to get a little more detail as to your willingness to work with the committee. Is your willingness to work with the committee finding tweaks to the bill that could potentially accommodate some of your concerns, or is your desire to simply be taken out of the bill as a mandate?
I think that I can only speak for MACO. I am happy to work with the committee in whatever they think is best, so long as we're all on the same page, whatever that may be, as long as there's a solution that we're included in. I would love to continue working on this.
And since she can only speak for her, there are a lot of smart people in this room on this committee, so I think we can probably figure something out. I don't want to say that we'll be opposed until the end of session, but I'm also not going to rule out the fact that we might not agree on something by the end. So kind of washy there, I'm sorry, but it depends on what we come up with.
Yep.
All right, thank you.
The gentleman from Western Maryland is recognized, Delegate Beitzel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I probably shouldn't even ask this question because it might be a reason for a new bill to be introduced very quickly. But have either MML or MACO had any discussion or talked about the employee working at home? And Delegate Krim that introduced the bill, it indicated there's going to be huge benefits, not traveling and cutting down on traffic congestion. Have any of you thought about there in the future? I think we're going to see that there's going to be questions about the employees using their homes for business and for their job. Have either of you heard any discussion or anything about those employees at some point in the future saying, well, I'm using my home for my office. This is my office now. I want a tax deduction for my office. I can just see this coming down the road. Has that ever been a subject of conversation in your arena?
Not for Mako. I have not heard anything of that.
No.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. Are there any other questions from members of the Appropriations Committee for this panel? Seeing none, thank you very much. That ends the bill hearing for House Bill 73. And also that ends the virtual bill hearing for today. We do have some announcements that tomorrow begins the subcommittee budget hearings. The committee analysts will be sending us an email with the agency written responses tomorrow morning. All DLS analysis for subcommittee meetings tomorrow on the floor system. Next week, they'll also be emailed to us. We will meet as a full committee on Friday at 11, and Ms. Dana Phillips, the assistant to the chair, has emailed a vote list out to our offices. On a personal note, I do want to thank Ms. Dana Phillips and Ms. Cherie Wareheim and Mrs. Michelle Lambert for their assistance with the technical issues that we were having earlier today. So on behalf of
Mr. Chairman?
Committee, yes?
There's a subcommittee announcement I'd like to make.
Oh, okay, sure. I'll take any other announcements. The chairman of the Health and Social Services Subcommittee is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So in addition to our budget hearing starting tomorrow, the Health and Social Services Subcommittee will be having a voting session. Very quick, 2 bills. We've already heard them and they were previously passed out as committee last year. Tomorrow at 11 a.m. Please be on the lookout in your email for the Zoom link for that hearing, for that bill voting session. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Are there any other announcements from members of the Appropriations Committee?
Mr. Vice Chair.
The Vice Chairman of Education Economic Development is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just wanted to let members know that tomorrow after our budget hearing, we will have a short voting session on 2 bills. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vice Chairman. Are there any other announcements from members of the Appropriations Committee? Seeing none, thank you very much. On behalf of the Appropriations Committee, Chairwoman Maggie McIntosh, thank you everyone for a great discussion and conversation and for just the time that was spent today on this bill hearing. Everybody have a great evening. Thanks.